Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Colette, if your team's ready there, I'm ready.
I'm going to call the meeting to order.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I move that we amend the agenda. Second.
Second.
All in favor of amending the agenda?
Aye. Aye.
The end of the agenda, I propose that we put the capital report section at the end.
It's not good.
Agenda.
Muted.
Colette?
Yes.
Colette, we're getting some like backflush or whatever. I think some of those laptops need to be muted.
Oh, right. Okay.
No, it's already on down here.
Okay.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay. So the new agenda will have to replace the new capital reserve at the end of both days. So after police. All in favor of the amended agenda? Aye.
Aye.
So, the only, remarks that I have is to thank all of you for, John and your team for all the work that you put into this budget. I know it was a lot of time and kind of a time crunch, so we appreciate that. And carry on.
Okay, Colette, thank you very much. Board, thank you, and everybody else. So we'll open up this. This is a budget review, a detailed review for the board and for the association. At this point, our team has put together I put forward a proposed budget to the B&F team. They scrubbed everything. They gave us their feedback, which we reviewed, incorporated. And we're going to go forward now to the board, and I will have my team in here, our team, to present detail by department, by amenity. What I do and what I will do right now, and just like every other meeting, is our whole presentation it's bottoms up. I will give you all a reflection from top down, which includes that bottoms up and put everything into perspective. So with that, Josh, I got a couple slides I sent out to you. I'd like to open the meeting like I did with B&F.
Yeah, it should take about 15 seconds to load.
Great. We're looking good, Helen. Okay, perfect timing. Okay, thank you, Josh. All right, so let's start off with, if anybody's been to the board meetings over the last several months, and like anything else, preparing a budget, what I did here, what we did was, there are headwinds, there are tailwinds, and we are fortunate this year to have some really good tailwinds. But let me just take you through it, because you will see when we give you the detail on this whole budget, how we approached and addressed all of these headwinds. So just like any other company or any other association, any other budget, inflation has raised its ugly head on our economy. With that said, it does affect us. It affects us in our amenities as far as pricing, materials across the board, our wages, which I'll talk about in more detail. But with this said, when you have inflation, and one of the things I preach to the team and everything is we need to have a balance. So with this inflation and price increases, we are recommending pricing increases on our memberships and dailies. We did get feedback from committees as well as B&F, and the team will take you through that with more detail. But there are pricing increases built in. Minimum wage, well, that's statutory, and we all know about that. And I believe it goes to what in this budget, $12.50, Linda?
Yeah.
So we were at 11.75. It goes to 12.50, and I think over the next 2 years, like everywhere else, it goes to $15. So we have broken out, and Steve has schedules because payroll is a big number, and we broke all this out for BNF, and we will break it out for this board. So minimum wage is a big number in this budget and a big increase. Mark to market, and what I'm talking about there is something in addition to the minimum wage increases, as well as anything else. That's what we need to be competitive. So if we have a position that, minimum wage is, we normally identified it at $12.50, our team has come forward and we've benchmarked it with, whether it's Dunkin' Donuts or anybody else, we may have to pay $15 or another number. We have all that broken out. Steve has all that detail. We work with all the department heads. So we will break that out for you all, but this was all given to BNF. Proposed legislation, and I underlined on my copy proposed. So I did receive a letter from our lawyer, our attorney, or whatever. There is a proposal. It's not the first time where they're looking at putting some type of legislation in, and there's nothing wrong with that, to give guidance or regulations on how a homeowners association should have their reserves. I will certainly talk to you about that. In fact, I have a couple slides right after that. So we have looked at that, and again, it's proposed, but I will lay all that out for you so that you can see the recommendations on what we're coming forward with. All right, insurance premiums, and Steve will certainly talk to you about that when the time comes. But that's something that's always a headwind, and we do have increases, and we work through that. And Steve will get it more into that. Tailwinds, and it's always good to have tailwinds. So improved performance and amenities in departments. Well, again, if you've been to the board meetings or whatever in the BNF, our amenities are showing organic growth in revenue. We across the board have had expense efficiencies, which has all been reflected in this budget, as well as the surplus that you've seen so far that we're generating this year, as well as last year that we recognized. And that just ties me right into the tailwind of surplus. So we do have a surplus. We have a recognized surplus. And I got a slide on this. I'll talk more about it. And right now we're running a nice surplus for this year. So that's all factored into this budget. There will be some decisions that would need to be made by this board or to give me a go ahead on a certain item. So with that, let's turn the page so I can get to them. Turn the page. I've never had this before. Josh. All right, actually,
is it not showing up?
No. Can you go back to my reconciliation? You got the third slide there.
Yeah. I think there's a delay. Can you see it now?
I do, but I see the third slide, not the second. The reconciliation, budget change to annual assessment.
Okay, this is 2 for me.
All right, just go back then.
Is this the correct one?
No, sir. It's the one that says budget change on the top of the annual assessment.
Yeah.
It's just
Not showing up. It must be a delay.
It's not showing up yet.
All right, let me reload it.
There you go. Perfect. Can you make it larger? If not, that's fine. All right.
Gone.
I'm not going to press my luck with it. It came across well in the test, Josh, this morning.
Yeah, it did.
Can you get it back up there?
Yeah, 1 second.
And then just leave it there and I'll go through it. I have copies of this. If the board doesn't have it, then we'll have them sent up there. Is Debbie around? Somebody can send them up copies of these 5 pages.
I can.
Can you do that?
Yeah, I can.
Linda's, Colette, we tested this morning. It was smooth. Linda's going to bring you up copies for everybody up there. I guess she needs about 10. There you go.
Does everybody have this?
Okay, she's going to bring you up hard copies also, but you can see it now on the screen, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, I will start, or if you want to wait for her to bring your copies, but I think you can all.
Can we wait? In the meantime, so we have a couple of members of the public attending by Teams, and I wanted to ask if there are any public comments from any members
Oh, okay.
who are in attendance. All right, so we'll proceed.
Okay, thank you, Colette. All right, so the hard copies are coming up to all of you, so they have them. So this is reconciliation. I presented this also to B&F, and I've done this before. What I've done here, we've done here, is we've taken last year's assessment, 996, non-water, and I'm going to break out for you where we have favorability, where we were able to decrease that assessment, where we have increases, which ties in kind of with that prior schedule, down to what our proposed assessment is. All right, so let me take you through it. So again, 996 was last year or the current year's assessment that we're in. The next 12, 15 lines there for a total revenue increase of $496,570 or $59 favorable on that 996. So this is the organic growth that I talked about to all of you. Some increases that we have put in there and how this will affect the fact that all our amenities are doing so much better than they've ever done, right? And forecast and everything. And we possibly, one of the first years ever, we're going to show an operating profit for golf among everything else, food and beverage. So it has approximately $59 decrease to the 996. So that brings you down to somewhere like 935. General replacement contribution decreased per the DMA study. So every year we call it depreciation. I know if you're on B&F, we always did. Steve is right, though. It is a contribution to our reserves. It's a little bit different, but it's basically all depreciation. So with the DMA study that we did, that we presented with B&F, that B&F signed off on, when we go back and check the calculations with all the changes that we made, we actually came up with a favorable calculation on our contribution versus last year. Comes out to $14 favorable against last year's assessment. All right, that's all broken out with the DMA. Bad debt decrease, as you know, last year and even some the year before, we increased our allowance with everything going on with COVID and the economy. We all agreed, and we reserved for that so that there would be no surprises. Steve and I have gone through this thoroughly. We've gone through it with the accountants in the past year, and we've taken it down $100,000, which would be $12 favorable. We still believe we are more reserved than we were in years past, especially the years that I've been here. Right, Steve?
Yep.
So total food and beverage change in operating income, $9 favorable. And again, when Steve goes through that, you'll see how that all comes into play. Legal fees decreased $10,000. So Steve and I talked, we looked at it. I felt it was prudent to decrease it based upon everything that went on in this past year. I don't believe, at least my opinion now, and there are assumptions when you do any budget, I don't believe we would be at that number. This was more a rebalance or a reallocation. This money was then moved to the elections. And, I know there's going to be some referendums, as Doug had mentioned, and other. So this one was more a reclass that I believe would be good. All right, so now we have some now the tailwinds, some increases to that assessment. Minimum wage required adjustment. You have the numbers, how much this cost, again, the detail. And Steve has a really nice payroll schedule that he has been doing since he's been here that will break everything out. I know I've gotten requests for that from certain members in the association, but there's the numbers, the increases to the assessment, so you can see where our assessment dollars are going and why. Right? Minimum wage, that's statutory. The mark to market, whether it's public works or aquatics, there is an increase there. And that's above minimum wage, like I talked to you about. And the department heads will talk and answer any questions on that. The merit increase is pretty much, Steve, what is it in at 3%? 3%. This has been consistent with other years, and that's the number on the assessment. Total wages, salary increases, $267,000, $32 increase on the assessment. Fire department increase. So this has been well, and the fire department would be in here. The fire department has put in their budget. It was thoroughly scrubbed with B&F. They will be here. They will break it out. This is more about manpower changes from, but I'll let them talk about it, part-time to full-time and medical, right? I think they have several of the fire department who didn't get medical in the past are now getting it, as well as the new full-time. And that comes out to a $38 increase on the assessment. All right. I call it on the right, fire department increase. I'd like to put in brackets there and just call it safety, but they'll talk about that. That's not for me. Property liability insurance increase, $50,000, $6. Steve will talk to you about that and any questions you have during the general admin. Referendum potential costs, so like I said, I put that in there. That was more rebalancing, certainly up for discussion. One time it's, okay, this is a new line. I just want to talk about this. So in the past, for several years, when we had that operating deficit, the infamous 1.6 million, the board approved in the assessment, a part of the assessment was to pay down that operating deficit. It's prudent. We did it. So there was an increase into the assessment for it. Now, Steve has done a schedule for me, and I spoke to B&F about this because I saw there were questions on the outside. That $1.6 million operating deficit was basically paid down by that assessment increase, but only half. The other half of that operating deficit was paid down at a surplus from our operations over the last 2 to 3 years. All right. So now, and I'll get into this more, and we all will, and especially when we do the reserves on the last day. But now we have these surpluses. We're running a surplus this year, but not recognized until the end of the year. So what I've done is I've spread that out. And I'm going to make recommendations. I made it to B&F. I will make recommendations to this board today on how to utilize the recognized surpluses and how that will all tie into this assessment. And obviously, and you're going to see on that next slide that was up there before, the balances. But I'm recommending, we're proposing a $450,000 decrease in the assessment or $53 decrease, one-time deal for this surplus. Now, obviously, next year, if we're running a big surplus again, if I was here, I would talk about this also. And that should be factored in once we look at all our reserves and everything else, which we did, I did, we did, and we're going to present. So this, to me, is something that, be a plus-minus account each year. Operating deficit, nothing in the surplus reserves or nothing in retained earnings as a surplus. Maybe it goes the other way. One-time deal, $53. Total net assessment increase, reduction, $71. Kind of close to the 100 that I was predicting months and months ago. But like I said, something came in at the last minute, which certainly needs to be in there. Proposed fiscal year 23 non-water assessment, $925. So that's the high level. I got a couple more slides before the team goes in. It gives you all the detail that's already been vetted. Anybody have a question on that slide before I go to the next two? I'll tie it all in from the balance sheet. Great. Okay, next slide. Yes.
John, are you so you're suggesting this carry almost $335,000 in retained earnings?
Yeah, so and you're coming in garbled again, Larry. Somebody's got to mute it, but let me get to the next slide. It's actually on that slide. But yes, let me get to that slide and I'll answer that question. But good point. Okay, so here's the slide, and you're going to get to that number that Larry just pointed out. Let me get down there. So what we did here, I talked about, I would tie it all into the balance sheet. So what Steve did up here for us, is showed you a reconciliation and it's similar to what we have for our reserves and everything, but he shows you the beginning balance, the adjustments each year, and what our ending surplus balance is. So if you go back up to the top, fiscal year 18, there's the infamous 1.6 deficit. So you can see what we've done over the last 3 years and what's going to happen forecasted or whatever for this year that we're in. So that shows you the balances and where we would be. And then to lead into what Larry just mentioned, if you go down below that, there's a couple items that I'd like to address today. Hopefully at the end of the day or whenever that the board gives me, approval on this or other guidance on how to handle it, it's fine with me. But I have that one-time assessment reduction going against that surplus up top of $450,000. I just explained that to you. But I'm recommending that that's a one-time assessment reduction for this year. To replenish the roads reserve, $350,000. So last year, when we did the bottoms up, we had like an assessment increase of a couple $100. We kind of made a couple changes, and one of them was that we knew we had to do the Bainbridge project So we shifted money from the roads reserve, all approved by the board, all vetted with BNF and everything. And what I said was we would put that money back. We all said that, not just me. So we are Steve put that back. It was 350,000. And then plus what we're going to allocate in it this year, right, Steve, another 350. And then when I show you another schedule somewhere between today and if we still go tomorrow, we'll show how we address what BNF recommended to build up a reserve for roads, which we really never had before, at least since I've been around here. What I'm proposing is to build it up over time and not one shot. So we'll get to that. Transfer to new cap fund for T-Docs. So I had mentioned we kind of did some shifting last year, all transparent. The T-Docs, which I didn't think we'd get until now, and we're actually in the process of getting them built, but I didn't think we had to utilize the money. We did a transfer. We said that transfer, and we all agreed on it, board approved, that we would pay for those T-Docs, which will be coming due in a couple of months. $60,000 would come out of surplus. So Steve has been keeping a running tally. Here it is. So that brings you down to 860. You take the 860 against the, what, Steve, the 1194?
194, yeah.
And then you get what Larry was talking to you about, the 335. So obviously we've been talking about this and I've been vetting it. So we still would have the 335 put into our surplus and still in our reserves. If you take the next number, which is an estimate for this year of approximately 1.1 million or 108,792, and you add the 335, the 334, 991, and you come up, we would have a balance of 1,422,483, still in our surplus. Okay, even after I took those three items that I just went through with you. And then we can use this surplus, and we'll talk about this later, what I mentioned about the roads, and if we want to increase or at least allocate to our reserves. And we'll go through that. We have schedules on it. All right. Any questions? 925 is the number going into today, proposed. No questions? Great. All right, Josh, let's see what happens. I got one more slide. All right, so we all know this slide and compliments. This is a total team effort. And this is a slide that I put together years ago to tie everything out when we did the first DMA study. Compliments, and I'm going to do a shout out to James Ringsdorf, who actually did the whole Excel spreadsheet and presented this for years. And now obviously Steve and then eventually other people. So compliments to all of them. It ties everything together. We never had something like this before. I'm not going to get into the total detail, hopefully, but what I want to show you, if you go down where Steve put the yellow highlight, before we finish this day, I just want to, because these are the big questions out there. I want to show you. Now, we've talked about 22 to 28% in our reserves, right? This will show you where we're at. I always project 5 years. I've mentioned this before, that the team, we went through and scrubbed the next 5 years of what our capital replacement needs are. What I did and what this takes is it takes that basis what our general contribution would be to give us an idea on where we will be, so that we, or this board now, can make decisions on where we should be with our reserves. So I'm giving this board and everybody else the tools that they need. I certainly use these. This is what I do. We do. Steve does with me. And this is how we make our decisions. So you can see it's kind of healthy. But again, that depends on what this board says. We did fall a little bit below, and I believe it's this year, Steve. But we knew that. And we did back out. And we'll talk about this more later. We did back out the $600,000 in this budget, which was even recommended by BNF after I presented it. And I believe some board members gave us the, preliminary nod or whatever. But that $600,000, and we'll talk more about the irrigation system, is still in there the next 4 or 5 years. So if we as a community or this board decides that we're going a different route for this irrigation system, your bottom number there in yellow would be even higher percentage. All right, so I'm just pointing it out, but we'll get more into that, and especially when we do at the end the capital replacement, and Steve takes you through the reserves and gets more in detail on this. But this reflects all the inflation increases, what we believe the capital contributions would be, shows you what I believe or what this team believes we're going to be needing for replacement. And it gives us kind of, at least I believe right now, the healthiest we've been with that. So with that, if anybody has any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to turn over, I believe, Public Works, Steve. I'm going to hand over to Linda and Steve, who have helped me run this, and we got Public Works coming in. Any questions before I hand off to the team?
Hey, John, I have a question, but it's probably better stated when we're talking about the reserves. So I'll wait till we get to.
No, tell me what it is, but again, so it gives us a prepare if we don't have it.
Okay, so it's kind of a, some blue sky thing, but with the idea that we may end up having to deal with the mailboxes, should we consider addressing that in some form? And I don't have a number. I go defer to you to say what number should we put. But we're decreasing the contribution to the reserve by 118K. I agree with that. But
We're covering that right in the budget this year. Yeah.
Should we consider a number, at least have a target for, obviously, if we get the mailboxes?
Yeah, so good point, Doug. And we actually figured that into this budget now after the BNF and everything. When you told me, Larry told me, and everybody else, we do have that factored into this budget. Right now, the way we're doing it, and there will be a capital component, but to me, it's pretty much maintenance and or new capital, because a lot of this is not on our books, I believe. And to your point, is the concrete is on our books, so that would be replacement, but we'll break that over the next 5 years, but we have that in there, yes. Yep, good. No, good question. Okay, anybody else? That's good. Now help us to present when we get to that part. We'll give more detail on that, Doug. Anybody else?
Yes, John Gilma, Amy Peck, I have a quick question. That's $600,000 for the next 4 years in the reserve for the golf irrigation. When you present the reserve numbers, do you have the new percentage of what our reserves will be if we don't use that 600,000?
Yeah, so, and Amy, because like I said, it's still in there. We took it out of this proposed budget. It's still in there, you're right, for the next 4 years. Steve will run that on a break for us, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I would estimate 5 to 10% increase.
Okay, so for Steve already did it. Steve said that it would increase. So if I look at fiscal year 23-24, Steve, we got 25% reserve balance. If we took out the 600,000, what would be the percentage approximately? 29. Oh, 33. All right, he'll run you that so that we have
It's going to improve a few points, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
2, 3, 4 points.
We'll rerun it.
Yeah, Steve will do that. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, but just for now, high level, figure 2, 3 points. We actually had that. I can't remember. All right. Any other questions? Good questions. Anybody else? All right. As you know, I'm open to it. So is my team. They're going to read off. They're going to go through these budget details. If anybody has any questions, we're flexible. You don't have to wait to the end. I got a team here that's very experienced with this. All right. So with that said, Eddie, who's going to present your budget? Okay. So Linda Martin will present all the public works budgets under the watchful eye of Eddie, who obviously, even though she's presenting, and this is all part of our team training and whatever, but this is all under Eddie too. Go ahead, Linda.
We're not doing line by line.
No. So Linda, we've been through this all before. Linda's going to take the highlighted ones, the ones that are de minimis or whatever, she's going to skip over. But if somebody has a question on it, feel free to ask us. I got plenty of expertise in here.
Okay, starting with general maintenance. The only major change to general maintenance was for gas and oil due to the inflation cost of the current gas and oil. We did raise that. So that has been, the proposed is 11,900 compared to last year's budget, which was 8,750. So that is the only major changes for general maintenance. Any questions on general maintenance before I move on to public works?
Hey, again, not focused on the mailboxes, but do we have a target number of what we think needs to be spent next year just for general maintenance of those mailboxes?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I just, it's right on my desk, Doug. I'm going to go back and I'm going to present that at the board meeting on Saturday for this year. Let me just go get it. I'll be right back.
All right. No, that's okay.
Yeah, no, we have it. Go ahead. I'll get it.
Okay, moving on to public works. We did the high level. We are trending higher on county roads revenue, so we did adjust that from 55,000 to 85,000. Again, for gas and oil, we did increase that. So that went from 46.5 for this year up to 63.5 for next year proposed. Roads and bridges, we did add the road striping of Ocean Parkway. So that took the total proposed to 92,000, up from 61,750 this year. And for insurance, we did increase that as well because it's been trending higher in previous years. And we did adjust that from 46,568 to 59,060.
Okay, so let me just get back on the mailboxes. That seems to be a new number. It could be a sizable number from different things we've happened. So, Doug, what I'm coming forward to on the board is, and Linda's running this for me, and obviously Eddie, Noby, Clint, and everybody else is in there. I asked them to focus on the pedestals, because the pedestals from all the pictures and everything we have are something that needs to be replaced. So for this year alone, and Linda's working on this and everything, and we have numbers in the budget for this stuff also. Like I said, it's mostly going to be maintenance. If it's the concrete pads, that would be replacement, and then if we want to build something else, that would be new capital. But just to give you an idea, what we believe we can do over the next couple months is approximately 100 pedestals replacing at $456, say $500 each. You're talking about $45,000 to $50,000, which we're going to take out of the maintenance budget. We believe we can cover it. It's like anything else, and we've talked about this, Doug, Larry, and everybody else from BNF or whatever. It's like anything else. It looks like I have extra surplus in maintenance, but once I get one big job, whether it's the beach club or whatever, that 100,000 disappears, Doug, like you wouldn't believe. So to give you an idea, we're looking at about 45, 50 to answer your question on that, Doug, and we've made that a priority, the pedestals, the cluster boxes. Just to give you an idea, what we're looking to do over the next couple of months is 20,000. And we have breakout for this when the time comes to give you all detailed plans. Linda's actually working on that with the team. The concrete pads, and again, obviously this year, what we're planning over the next couple of months is the biggest part, is the part that's needed. So this would be the biggest part, assuming that we're not doing something new with, overhangs or gazebos or anything like that. And obviously, we have to see what we find when we go in there and start breaking the stuff apart. The concrete pads, there's 13 of them that need attention. The estimated price around that is $36,000 to $40,000. That, I believe, is replacement. And then obviously the cleaning or whatever, and what's the best method to do that, Doug? We're still trying to evaluate. We're not going to go in there with a power washer. I mean, we'd like to, but we're looking at that. So that'll give you an idea. All righty? Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Had any questions about public works? No. Okay, moving on to CPI.
What tab?
What tab?
980.
Leave Ruth in.
GPI is
6. Okay, so tab 6.
Okay. CPI, we have, as mentioned at the previous meeting, we did realign the revenue and the fees to be for better estimates compared to the previous years. So the administration fees were dropped actually from 4,500 to 3,000. Inspection fees went up from 32,355 to 40,070. Filing fees went from 23,915 down to 16,290. Resale certificates are remaining the same at 125,000. And the interest income went up from 800 to 1,250.
No coffee.
We are proposing ARC is proposing a fee, as mentioned, of dropping the filing fee for the variance and exceptions from 115 down to 50. And I know it was brought up at the last meeting if we're going to suggested change. Again, for compliance, CPI department, the gas and oil did increase from 2,500 up to 3,000.
Linda, you cut out there. I couldn't hear. Are these going to be refundable or non-refundable? What was decided?
We were talking about doing both of them, not doing the 115 refundable or doing the 50 non-refundable. Right now, the 115 is considered non-refundable. Any other questions on CPI? Okay,
Kids.
moving on to bulkheads.
Okay, hold on. What tab? It's my favorite. What
Number
tab?
9.
Number 9.
Okay, bulkheads. For gas and oil, we did increase from 2,100 to 2,310. The bulkhead replacement has dropped. We are going from this year, what was in the budget from 1,161,375. We are staying under that, and we are proposing 919,125 for bulkhead replacement. Okay.
So let me just jump in and thank you, Linda and Nobi and Eddie. So let me just recap again. And I don't have my notes in front of me, but we went through all this with B&F. So there is no proposed increase to the bulkhead assessment for water. It's going to stay the same. There were big increases the last 2 years. We normally did around 3,000 linear feet, or at least since I've been in here, because before that, I think we went through a lull there for several years that nothing was getting done. We've taken it down to around 2,000, 2,100 linear feet, and a couple of reasons to recap again. First, there's been tremendous increases in fluctuations in the material and obviously the labor. We're hoping that will kind of settle down or balance out over the next year or two. What we all experienced over the last 2 years with COVID and labor and getting material was that it was taking the contractor a longer period of time to do 3,000 linear feet. And he was going past Memorial Day weekend in May, which was then eating into the summertime, where we were getting a lot of feedback and a lot of, I don't want to call them complaints, but a lot of calls on how that was affecting everybody's summers and whatever, whether it was views or their boats or docks or whatever. So we've dialed it back, at least for this year, to around 2,000 to 2,100 linear feet. Couple things. One, with the vinyl, we believe we've been told, and we've heard this before, we get a longer life. So now we're looking at a life of our material and everything, longer than it was in the past. We have about 90,000 linear feet. And we thought that 3,000 in the past, that would be good over 30 years to replace everything. So this is a one-time this year, but we have to see. So let's let everything calm down. I mean, this past B&F and everything else in the past with this to go with the 2,000 linear feet. Now, nobody would jump right in and say, hey, John, we just did what we called emergency, around 300 linear feet, 250, 280.
Right.
Which was supposed to be in this proposed budget that we're doing now. So it's not like we're falling behind that much. We already did it because, one, it needed it. We had a contractor who had some time, who gave us a terrific price, and the board approved it, and everybody else. We took advantage of it. We utilized him during that period. So technically, we're probably doing about 2,500 linear feet this year. All right, so that's what I have on that. Any other questions? Or Linda, you want to add anything else? Obviously, in that bulkhead department that you have there are other expenses, whether it's the backfill, the sod, the labor, our allocation of our salaries, anything else in there. And that's pretty much it.
John, where are we on the permits for dredging?
Okay, and so there's a couple of different years. Let me give it to you. High level is this. The dredging, we've had a hard time getting the permits. We haven't been able to get the permits. I've been told that they're there, but the whole thing with COVID or whatever. So we're probably, I don't remember now, 3 years back.
We just got 2019.
We just got, if you heard Eddie, we just got to 2019. So we'll be working on that.
Yep.
And there's about what, there 20?
And the
We
state,
did get those permits?
Hold on one second.
the county has just got theirs back after 12 months of waiting
on one project
for them.
county.
Yeah, so what nobody's telling me, it's not just us. The county had a project and they just got back after a year or two. So I'm sorry, Larry, what was your question? We have the permits for the 20, I think it's around 20 off the top of my head. I'm getting the nod there. So we got about 20, yes. And I believe, and we can give this again, I believe we put the locations where we're doing it, but we have that. All righty. All right, good questions. So obviously, right, that obviously is in here also.
Now, follow-up question. So, the permits are where they are, the funding is there. So if we get, by some crazy means, we get the permits, you're going to have the labor and the time to address any of the dredging issues this coming fiscal year?
I'm going to say yes. It is the same contractor. Go ahead, Eddie.
Yeah, it'll be done right after we finish the bulkhead work because dredging has to be done on a timeline. There's only certain months we're allowed to dredge. So we're hoping to be able to squeeze it right in with doing less feet this year, finishing up on a schedule that will go right into dredging as soon as we finish the bulkheads and have the dredging done.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it from a purely PR perspective. The people are going to hear that we got permits, that there is funding, and then they're going to want to see some tangible evidence. And I just, I think it's just be aware that they'll probably have to answer that question.
Yeah, we just got those permits. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll have the documentation. We can always put it out there about the closing. They closed because of the spawns of the flounder is the big thing. We're not allowed to dredge for those spring months. We have to wait till a certain time before we can dredge.
When is that? That's what people are going to want to know.
When to start? April 30th.
April 30th, we have.
April 30th, I think, is when it starts. Yeah.
Thanks, Eddie.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions on bulkheads before we check that box? All right, what's next?
We're done.
Okay. Any other questions for Eddie, Noby? Obviously Linda, but Linda will be here all day. I'll ask Eddie and Noby to come back when we do the capital. All righty, but they're here. Or if you have questions during the course of the day, Eddie just said to me that he'll be right here with Noby, and they'll be accessible if there's any questions. Okay, so we're now going to do public relations. What tab number? Julie will do the presenting. This is obviously Julie and Josh. They have walked through all these numbers with me. Trust me, there's been a lot of scrubbing. It's section 5. All right, Julie, all you.
Good morning. There aren't a lot of changes to our budget, so I'll just hit some of the highlights. And these are some of the same highlights that we hit with the budget and finance committee review sessions. The first one that I'll point out under revenue is grants. This is a change. This was a grant from the county that we put in for, I think for a couple of years and hadn't received it. So we just took it out of this year's budget since we haven't received that revenue. I'll just point out advertising sales, which is exclusively in our quarterly newsletter, and those sales have continued to be robust. So we're looking at that trend continuing. Of course, we obviously don't know what will happen, but that's been a really positive change in our revenue. The other thing I'll point out, we did mention in the budget and finance review sessions that there was going to be an increase to our printing costs. We were able to renegotiate that price, so there's actually no change. So we've kept the cost the same as in the original budget that was presented. Our other major cost is promotion and marketing. So this is down under other costs. And that's primarily newspaper advertising. It includes, actually, if you look in the budget details under promotion, you can kind of see our marketing mix. A lot of that's newspaper advertising, some specific advertising that the venues at Ocean Pines has requested for wedding and banquet business. And one change to that in the marketing mix is a marketing video package for banquets. That replaces $9,200 in last year's budget, which was for some targeted internet advertising. So we've replaced that with a marketing video package at the request of the Matador companies. And then the only other difference under our marketing, or excuse me, under in the details is we've added an additional $15,000 to our promotion and marketing. That's a shift from the golf budget to marketing, just to kind of keep it in line. We've moved some of their marketing expenses to our budget before. So it's nothing different that's being done. It's just shifting that $15,000 from golf. And those are just some marketing costs associated with hotel rounds and Ocean City Golf Getaway. Those are the highlights. Does anyone have any questions about anything?
Good job. Anybody? Okay, they've done, Josh, Julie, others, they've done a lot of work on this. If you go back 3, 4, 5 years ago on what our marketing budget was, it certainly has been streamlined, reallocated, and I think they maximize every dollar. So if no other questions, we are in the process. We're still waiting for golf. I also just asked Linda to bring in the chief. He's been on alert, as well as we're going to get Aquatics up here. So we're expecting John any moment. So if you all want to take a 5-minute break, this is a good time, but I do believe we can fit in, if okay with Colette and the board, after golf. I'm going to have the chief here and Aquatics, and then we'll have lunch, and I'll check with Debbie. All righty? So a couple minutes while John's parking his car out there. Julie, thank you very much. Josh, you're out there. I hear you. Thank you, Josh.
We're ready.
Okay, great. So with that said, this is, I think, the second year in a row where John Malinowski is going to have to present after the great job that Julie did, and I'm expecting the same great presentation from him. Okay, so with that said, golf, take it away. What tab number? Steve?
Tab number 1. Let's see, number 15 and 16. 15 is up.
Okay, we're going to start off with 15. I guess John will go first, or whatever way he wants to do it.
Yeah, I mean, primarily we just we show an increase in revenue, which is more in line probably with about what we had this year that we're projecting. We've raised some green fees, cart fees, to try to get obviously inflation, everything else is going up for us. We've got increase in labor, gas, well, everybody knows things don't cost any cheaper now than they did a year ago. So, but we feel like we're priced pretty well, a little more merchandise. And I think, we're looking at 1.29 as our budget. And I think that's a pretty good number for us. And I feel comfortable that we're going in the right direction. And I think it's a good number for next year. I'm not sure what to say beyond that. Any questions?
I got all mine answered when you made the presentation back at the B&F meeting,
So just to give some perspective and everything, as far as the forecast for this year, and John met with me yesterday, and obviously Justin and Steve, just talking about the forecast for this year. Look, golf is sensitive to the weather. We all know that, and April's a big month, and we really can't judge that and everything, but they are very positive to budget for this year. And I believe next year, hopefully it'll continue in there, and golf will be in the positive. There are some price increases in here that they talked about, as Doug mentioned, right? Some increases, if anybody wants to talk to John about that. But as I mentioned about inflation, so there are some increases. Anything else on that? Otherwise, we're good.
I'm with you, John. I keep my fingers crossed because John Malinowski was a couple of years ago to calculate the cause of the weather. All of the weeks that it had rained, we lost about $80,000 worth of revenue. I think that's the number you came up with. It's because of the weather. Everybody else's fault. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that we don't run into it.
Yeah, this year we had a really good weather year this year, and our financial numbers are showing that. So we've been very lucky. We didn't miss any big weekends or anything.
Yeah, so the only point I want to make on it is, as well as the other amenities, whether it's food and beverage or aquatics, we kind of, I don't want to use the word hedged, but we kind of tried to build that in. All righty, good. Okay, Maintenance.
Yeah, no, perfect. So for maintenance, obviously the big ones this year was some of the inflation costs. So our chemicals and fertilizer prices were going up. We're seeing an increase in just parts for equipment maintenance, and then just the payroll budgets. But those were really the big ones. Other than that, I feel like we've been pretty efficient and kind of have a good idea of what we're looking at. So, yeah, any questions there?
Yeah, the only question you're going to hear, again, it goes back to the irrigation system. What are you thinking that it's going to cost to maintain the system this year until we either get to the county doing something or us doing something?
Justin, I'd like to, you do yours, but I want to jump in. You want me to go first?
It's fine, yeah, if you want to go.
Yeah, so Larry, you look, again, excellent question. And obviously with all this, I just want to put it in perspective again, and then Justin will obviously give you the detail, but to put it in perspective is this. It's the same thing. You have a roof on your house and you have shingles on there that are 25-year shingles and you're in year 25 or 26 and you're looking up and, it's okay. But you might have to do a little more maintenance. And that's the question Larry's asking, and we'll kind of try to answer that. But what happens with this too is, you run the risk that if something does break, and I'm more concerned about the panels and all that in the pumping stations, and maybe Justin could talk about that. If that goes, that's a big number. We're assuming it'll still work. But if so, obviously we have money in the reserves and we'll look at that. But there will be a little more maintenance on it. We've looked at the budget, and I want Justin to answer this question. Justin does, I don't want to use the word baby the system, but Justin's going to explain to you why he's able to go through with this pressure and all that stuff.
Yeah, so obviously with our irrigation maintenance number, a lot of the money we have in the budget is for leaks, repairs, small stuff. Obviously, if we do run into something with the pump station, big repairs, then that is certainly going to have an impact on the budget. But the system, we are regularly putting service into it and doing everything we can to keep it running as efficiently as we can. So obviously with the way we're running it and the maintenance and just how we're looking at it every day, I mean, I set foot in that station every day in season just to check on things, make sure everything's running properly. It is unpredictable, but we're certainly doing everything we can, and I'm pretty confident we can have another good season with it. Obviously this year was a fairly dry, kind of average year as far as rainfall, and it held up very well. So, in a pretty dry year, we actually got it through pretty good. So, we're going to continue doing what we're doing with the system to keep it operational.
That doesn't answer the question, Justin. The question is, how much are you anticipating dollar-wise to maintain the system?
So I think we have $8,000 in for the year. So that typically, that can be pretty close to our number, just depending on how many leaks we see. So that can fluctuate a little bit. But obviously that number, that 8,000 for maintenance, if we do see like a pump go down or something like that, that number doubles. I mean, that.
Right.
Well, as well as the stations, the radio stations and everything else that go out. So,
but yeah, for most of our daily repairs and leaks we see, that 8,000 is well within usually what we can manage for the year as far as maintenance.
So to give Larry a specific question, without the panels or anything going like that, Larry, let's use the number 10,000 to answer your question. And we believe we can cover it one way or the other.
Just what kind of number we're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking 150, unless we're dealing with panels or something like that. Okay. Somebody in the building here, Linda?
Not yet.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. You're off. You're off. Steve, you want to do one of your?
Okay. Thank you for that third. Yeah.
Okay, so this we're a very flexible team, Steve, and we planned it this way, as you know. Steve's going to do general admin if you're okay collecting the team.
Yes.
And Steve, just tell us the.
Yeah. So the tab, guys, is let's see, it should be up front. Yeah, number 2. All right, and this is one of the pages that got revised. The all the ones that you've seen thus far didn't have any major revisions from the BNF. This one did have some significant revisions to it. I'm going to turn to my new page that everybody on the board should have received a copy last week that I sent out. If I can freaking find it.
I've been coming in.
Okay, so our revenue is actually down because now the 925 assessment that John alluded to, based on the $450,000 contribution surplus. The right-of-way fees that Larry pointed out in the BNF sessions, we took that up. So now that's in there at 195,000, closer to where we think will come in this year. We took interest income up based on John watching the markets and saying next year that we're expecting the Fed to increase the interest rates
At least 4 times.
Yeah, at least 4 times. So we took that up a little bit. Still conservative with the number of $75,000. And then we talked on the high level reconciliation in the beginning that we put together about bad debts and legal expenses. So we took bad debts down another 50,000. So that's in there at 50,000. The election referendum Doug mentioned when he was a part of the BNF sessions about the potential that referendums have additional costs. We put an additional $10,000 in there to cover us for that. So it was basically a little bit of a shifting game, not a game, but a shift. Reallocation is the better word, from the legal into the election referendum line. So net, did not cost us anything within admin. But from a bottom line standpoint, you can see our expenses are pretty much a little bit better than we have in the budget or have in the estimate. And like I said, the revenue is down as a result of the surplus contribution, which is the big change on this page. Any questions?
I don't know if it's better served in aquatics, but remember, not last year, the year before, we were having a discussion about the outstanding dollars associated with the pool cards that had not been cashed in yet. And,
yes.
I know some work has been done. We have a status, and is it significant enough that we need to worry about it with regard to the outstanding? I guess it stayed in retained earnings, did it?
Should be gone because
I think it's gone, but
because the coupons are no longer valid. Right?
Yeah, Larry, you're right. We talked about them just kind of going, hey, there was a drop dead date.
Be gone.
We put the drop dead date on it.
I don't think we ever.
So Doug, Larry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so again, good question, Doug, and spot on. The year I'm in now is where we're recognizing this. And Steve has spread it. That's obviously an accounting concept so that we don't have this one big hit in a month. So he's spreading it. He'll be done by the end of the year. He'll be done by the end of this year, the year I'm in now, the fiscal. So it'll be done.
Okay. So we don't have any outstanding concerns about cards and claims. All right.
Correct. Yep. Good question. But that's this year. It'll all be done, cleaned up. Okay. Good question. Anything else for Steve? General admin?
Yeah, I mean, we can touch on the other section.
Yeah, keep going. Keep going. And then I think Chief Leo's online, but let's let Steve finish up this section. He's on a roll.
The only other one I have, I guess, from an operating standpoint, we won't go into reserves, is finance, of course, which and general manager's office, I guess, would be covered. But tab 4, we did not make any changes in this rendition. So what you've seen out there for several weeks still remains. Like I said, I guess in the BNF sessions, the majority of the budget is, within payroll covers the IT budget. So we have a couple heads in IT. We have the HR budget. We have the finance budget, accounts payable, and the membership all rolling up, under finance. The only revenue that we have is for the transfer fees, which we have seen, some significant offsets to some of our expenses. We have $20,000 built in there in the proposed.
Steve, I have a question. Can we go back to the general manager's office, tab 3? I just wanted clarification about the fees we're incurring for a GM search.
Yeah, let me answer. Yeah, so Amy, that actually came up during budget and finance, and what I said on that, what my belief is, I do not have anything in there for the 22-23 budget.
Right.
I would believe that would come up now. It would be, as Doug mentioned, he defined it an unbudgeted item this year. And then we would take that this year, obviously, but I do not have anything in there for next year.
So we don't have to worry about it because it's in this right now budget.
Well, it was unbudgeted, and if Doug wants to jump, it's unbudgeted, but I have it covered.
The expense will be booked in this fiscal year.
Right.
And where does that come out of?
They sometimes just get unbudgeted expense out of services environment, managing all the different aspects of the budget. So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
This is going to be the board, is whether or not bringing on an assistant general manager coming year, and whether or not we want to put something in the budget under the general manager. Probably something we should discuss before we do a final vote on the budget.
I think that has merit. The other thing too is regarding timing. I wouldn't want to rush to a decision. I think we could also look at amending the budget should we at some point decide that it does make sense from an operating perspective. So while I agree with you in concept, maybe trying to push something and get a number in this year's budget before something's decided might be maybe jumping the gun a little bit.
Well, we still have time because we still have a process to go through here before we vote on make a final vote on the budget. That's probably something we should be able to maybe discuss that.
Yeah, and the other thing that comes to mind too is that perhaps one of the things to consider would be is when a new general manager comes in, she or he may want to weigh in on the concept of having an assistant general manager. I think that's timing wise, but I agree in concept that it should be considered.
Okay, so Steve is good. I mean, that was coming in and out, so we didn't totally hear everything. That's it on that. Anything else, IT and all that? You all done?
Yeah.
Okay, so Steve's good. With that said, I believe Chief Leo is online. Chief, are you there? If not,
we're here.
Okay, Chief, you're in?
Yep.
Okay, so what we're going to do is and I do have Aquatics here also, but let's do the Chief. I know he's got a lot going on there, not like everybody else. Linda will go through his budget on the police, and then the Chief will answer any questions, obviously.
Absolutely.
We're a flexible team.
You didn't have any changes in place.
No, there's no changes. Same as last time.
Okay, just the high end, everything in revenue stayed the same as in previous, as his current budget. The payroll did increase due to the changes proposed. The payroll cost has dropped though from 529,763 to 517,399. Contract services increased from 63,270 to 73,500. And that looks like the only major change. And insurance as well. Sorry, insurance did drop from 31,276 to 29,411.
That's it.
Anyone I think was asked during budget finance, so we're going to put something in here for cameras.
Yeah. So
let Steve jump in, Chief.
yeah. So as we talked about a little bit in the BNF, or a lot, I guess, is we do have the cameras in there for contract services. The detail shows that it's basically a Axum Enterprise, I guess, would be the company that is contracted. Chief can get into a little bit more with, I think we're jumping on to who Worcester County, correct, Chief, and others have used with that contract, but it is an operating expense. So we don't need the capital because we're not going to own the equipment. The equipment's going to be leased to us. So it's showing up here and operating as part of the year, and I think it would not be utilized until January of next year would be the first time, right, Chief?
Yes, it's going to take approximately 6 months, but the expenditure of the overall, it's approximately $150,000 project, projected over 5 years at $30,000 a year over that 5-year period. But that also includes our partnership with the State's Attorney's Office, Worcester County Sheriff's Office, Ocean City PD, and Wycomico County Sheriff's Office. To all be on the same program and exchangeable, which is going to cut our costs down as far as having to have additional software for communication overlap. If a deputy and one of our officers is on the scene, it's all compatible. So the company has made a large package project that will keep it at our $30,000 a year for a 5-year project. That includes maintenance, repair, upgrades to the cameras, unlimited access. We don't have to pay for storage for the video, the whole 9 yards. They're also aware of our budgeting process of what we're going through now, and our physical year is completely different. Everybody else's January. We run April, May 1. So we're projected into the same thing. So even though we'll start working on some of the project this year, we had a $30,000 reserve put aside last year for police reform. We're hoping not to have to touch that. We're hoping not to have to do anything until the next year's budget that Steve has the numbers in on. And this is also under the assumption right now that we get absolutely no assistance from the state. However, the governor has made quite some public announcements that he's going to have money coming back for some police reimbursement. Again, that costs us some legal aspects because of we have to qualify for those assistance because they're normally listed to municipalities and county agencies. So we're doing some legislative things to be accepted in. We're accepted in the mandate. We hope to be accepted into the possible reimbursement of some of these funds also. But we're budgeting right now as if we're not getting any assistance for it, with the hopes that we may be able to get a large amount of this back through grant issues and through reimbursement for police reform refund through the governor's office.
Thanks, Chief.
Anybody else?
Okay, anything? Yeah, thank you, Chief. Anything else? What say you? One of the safest communities in the country. Okay, Chief Shankar, thank you.
Thank you,
the
guys.
Safest communities. Okay, with that, we have our aquatics director here. Kathleen Cook will take the seat here. To my right. Steve, what section is aquatics?
Okay, so this is one of the sections where the numbers changed a little bit to add some additional revenue that Kathleen will get into, but it's section 14 in the book.
Excuse me.
Okay, so starting with the revenue went up. I believe that was from our increase in memberships.
Yeah.
That was recommended during the budget and finance meetings that we have. That represents a 5% increase across all membership costs. There's a very slight change in the vending over the last presentation. I'm not really sure what that is.
Yeah, it's basically just the membership piece. That's it.
So the total change in revenue, it changed what, like $20,000?
Yeah, the $13,000 and change. And I guess on John's sheet, the big takeaway in terms of changes versus the budget is the daily fees, certainly. So we have we have a volume increase and then we have a pricing increase associated with those. So we have $95,000, increase in daily fees as a result of the increase in pool usage this year. And then we also have the pricing increase baked in there as well, based on the daily fee increase that we have proposed.
But the price increase was in the presentation that we made to Budget and Finance. So,
correct.
And
the only adjustment we made on there was
I'm getting ready to tell
okay,
you.
gotcha.
So we had a discussion in the last meeting where I had made a suggestion that children pay from 1 to 5, and I didn't have the information to present to you from benchmarking and to allow you to make your decision. Subsequently, I'm amending my recommendation that it would be 3 and 4 year olds. I reached out to 2 public pools in Talbot County, both of which they charge above the age of 2. 2 public pools in Annapolis, they charge above the age of 2. A public pool in Harford County, same. I checked with Jolly Rogers, which is within our community. Everybody over 2 pays, and at the movies you pay after you're 18 months old. So I'm suggesting, I still do recommend they do use the pools. And I am recommending that we go forward with anybody over the age of 2. So 2 to 4 would pay a $3 fee, 5 if they are not in our community. And that that we move forward from there. So I did amend my recommendation, and obviously will yield to the board's decision. You didn't see a great change in revenue for that because of the fact that we don't collect that data.
Do you have any, I'm sorry, do you have any even ballpark estimate as to what the difference would be if you charged 3 and 4 years old versus you didn't charge 3 and 4 years old? Or, I mean, is that, or just, it's just not feasible right now because you don't have the data?
Mr. Parks, to be honest with you, no, sir, I don't. I mean, we check them in as bodies through the door, but because of the fact that they're not in the RPOS system, I was able to clearly pull genuine data for you on everything else. And so I can't answer that question.
Fair enough.
As a side note, I just wanted to state that Disney and everybody, whether you're a fan of Disney or not, it's any children 3 and up have to pay. So under 3 don't pay. I have to agree with you. To take a body and have someone paying attention and you're paying staff for that. I don't disagree with you.
I got to tell you, I disagree with it. I think, one of the things we hear all the time is parents not being able to have their grandchildren when they come down to spend time with them. I think this is a bad idea. I think that I don't know.
Larry, your mic is muted, and we're hearing you off the other laptops.
Johnny should be muted. There's a central mic for the board.
Oh, okay. It's just coming in bad though, Josh. They can't understand them.
Yeah. Is it possible, Larry, to move a little bit closer to that Yamaha mic in the center?
I'm fine. Yeah, look, I think this is a bad idea, particularly since we don't have any information about what the actual cost is. I would think for this year that we not do this. And Kathleen, if you can track what the impact would be for next year, it'd be something to consider next year. But I got to tell you, I understand your point that they take up body space and they have to be watched. But our lifeguards are going to be there anyway. So I'm not sure I buy that argument. If we're looking to increase revenue on daily user fees, and I mentioned this during the B&F hearings, I think we need to raise the fees more on non-residents as opposed to raising it on 3 and 4 year olds. So I think this is a decision the board needs to vote on, whether or not we want to move forward with fees here for 3 and 4 year olds for this year. And if you can come back next year with actual numbers, I mean, this may only be an impact of $5,000 or $6,000. And what's going to happen is we're going to go ahead and do this. And the people in the community are going to be, my feeling is they're going to be very upset. I mean, it doesn't affect me. I don't have any grandkids under that age. So when mine come down, we pay anyway. But I think this is not going to sit well with the community. So I think before we do this, my suggestion would be we raise rates a little more on non-residents. And then if Kathleen can come back next year with numbers that show what the financial impact is, then a decision can be made at that point. But
okay.
Board needs to decide.
Okay, so we heard that. We're open. This is the proposal. Obviously, and you're right, you said it because I was just going to say it. Obviously, the board, you can all, render and let us know and we'll march.
Yeah,
all right, so that's that, whatever the board says, but it's a board decision now.
And I'm going to support that idea, making a decision based on data versus based on estimates. I'm going to always lead towards data, given that, and I'll agree with Larry, that you're probably not talking about a whole lot of money. The cost in public relations may end up affecting the revenue line on, people that would come to the pool. So I would, my position is to let's track that data this summer and then look at it again and see if it's feasible to consider this idea again next year.
And then, I'm sorry, my comment or question is, was there any consideration given to what Frank Daly had suggested about especially grandparents membership, expenses of providing child care for their children over the summer, that they could include up to X number of grandchildren on their membership?
Did you talk to Ruth Ann about that?
So I have a couple.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
So Dr. Horn, no, we conferred with the team to include Ruth Ann in membership, and we elected not to make that a part of the recommendation.
And what was the rationale for that?
What'd she say?
What's the rationale?
System limitations of the way the membership system's built in North Star with the core of the system.
Right.
Thank you.
Kathleen, I have one suggestion. If you're going to be capturing data, if we could also capture data on how often the pools hit capacity. And I know working at the pools, sometimes that happened at 10:30 in the morning, because I think that data will be important too going forward.
So I commit to the fact that we will collect that data. Again, it was merely my recommendation. I'll yield to what the board decides. Keep in mind that will be a manual tabulation that has to be done. And to another point, I just want to make it very clear that we did have clear data this year on the other suggestions that we made. And to suggest that we bring the non-resident prices up further, which we did in fact do to reflect a reward to the homeowners because they paid their assessment, it would represent very little additional income.
Right.
The numbers prove that the residents are using the household, and you could charge non-residents $25 to come in, and it's not going to yield a significant increase in revenue. 96% are residents that are going through the gate. So that now we can clearly tell you that data with confidence.
Yes, thank you.
And then you also hit a point too, where then it becomes you've raised it to the point where it's not attractive anymore.
Well, to that point, Kathleen, that's what I was going to say. That part of the argument here is that we're tapping out on capacity at the pools, and it's great that 96% of the homeowners use the pool, and if we have to discover downside by raising the fees so that there's more availability for homeowners, then, in my mind, that's logical.
Data on the number of people that get turned away because the pools were full.
Dr. Horn, I'm sorry, I had a very hard time hearing that.
Data with a number.
Yeah, number of people, members who are turned away from our pool because they're full, they've reached capacity.
No, ma'am, we don't, that would be a manual capture as well. So that data is not collected.
We can make a decision on this 3 to 4 years old. So, and I say no.
Yeah,
I would say let's wait and get the
Let's
data,
get the
the
data
3 to 4 year old thing.
That's fine.
Say, yeah.
All right, so you're gonna get them data?
Yeah, we'll have to capture it
Wait till the summer.
manually. We'll have to present next year.
Okay. All righty.
Do you want to comment on this?
Rick, you're on mute.
Can you hear us, Rick? You have an input on this one? You're muted currently.
Yeah, Mr. Farr's on mute. There it is.
I'm here.
So do you have an opinion on the fee for the, what is it, 4 to 5 year olds, 3 to 5 year olds we're talking about now?
I'm having a little trouble hearing.
We were just wondering if you had any, an opinion, for the 3 and up for fees.
No, not at this time, no.
So we have consent still?
Yeah, I want to get more data. I think it's good to get more data.
So the consensus in the room is, get the data and represent next year.
That's fine. We can, I can commit to do that, we'll adjust so that we can manually capture that data. I don't believe there's any changes in the expenses, right?
Right.
So the mere change to the membership, the presentation that we made to Budget and Finance, the rest of the portion of the expenses has not changed for aquatics.
Okay. Good. Okay, so I guess the board's going to get back to us. I don't know if you're ready now, Colette, or your team, a couple of those decisions you're going to make, or we'll wait your decision. I'm sorry, there's no on the kids, but then something else with the non-residents.
We already raised the price.
I don't know.
More.
They were talking more. Do you have any comment or any guidance on raising the rates for non-residents?
I like where it is right now.
Okay. And all right, so we'll.
Parking.
Yeah, for the fact that it's 96%, you know.
Not that much.
Yeah, I would say.
It's not that much.
The consensus.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so with that, if there's nothing else on aquatics, beach parking, one of my faves.
Wait, I got one more thing.
Okay.
Kathleen, I noticed that the overtime number is still 0. Why is that?
Jesus.
But it's built in. No.
Covered somewhere else.
Yeah. So Steve was just talking to me. So you are right. That came up before. Steve and Kathleen and myself did talk about it. We feel it's covered. We're comfortable with it being in there.
It's probably, we probably have some money in payroll cost, Amy, to cover that, to offset it. Didn't actually adjust that line, but we can certainly make a reallocation.
Yeah, he'll reallocate, rebalance, but it's in there. We just saw something and we just netted it, but he'll break it out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, good question. Anything else on aquatics?
No, sir.
No.
All righty, beach parking. Who's going to do it?
I can do it.
Okay, Kathleen's going to do beach parking.
So beach parking, really the only change that you're going to see from the presentation that we made to Budget and Finance. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just tell them to tab. Tab 19, please.
This is one of the ones with changes because of the pricing.
Right. So when you get to that tab, I think that you'll see that the presentation is basically the same as it was when it was made to Budget and Finance, with the exception of we took the guidance from Budget and Finance and feedback in that meeting and raised the prices across the board on parking 5% as.
It was $15 across the board.
Was it 5%?
I don't think so.
$15 across all the membership options and beach parking. Other than that, I do not believe, and I think that was the direction given to us. And you'll see that there's no other changes from the presentation that was made to you at the Budget and Finance.
John, did you get an answer on the dumpsters lease, the parking lease over there? When that lease is up?
Yeah, actually, it's a small lease. It goes out a couple years. I can get the exact year, but it goes out a couple years.
I think it's two.
It's a small number.
Not a big number. Okay, and is there any money in here for beautification or the beach mat that we talked about?
Okay, so I saw that the beach mat. You're right. How much is?
That would be a capital purchase item.
Yeah.
Just don't have it.
That'd be a new capital item, John.
Yeah, so and I saw it, and I'm just updating them on all the emails and everything. So, and we talked about that it was never approved, and with the whole COVID and everything, I just don't remember how much it was. I got a number in my head of around 5,000, and I think it's probably high. We're going to check it. I did not put it in there. I believe we can. It is. Larry just mentioned new capital. I don't have it in there. The number just off the top of my head from a couple of years ago is somewhere a couple $1,000s. I think we had 2 of them. It's more than that.
I have it in my office.
Okay, so, and I think, like, I got too many people. We don't own that property.
Right, this is a city issue, right?
It's a city issue, and if you all want me to march forward, I'll march. It's not a big number.
But permitting and insurance could be.
Exactly, Doug, exactly.
It requires a permit.
Yep.
Absolutely, it'll require a permit.
Right. But but to answer your question, without doing a reallocate, I do not have it in the budget, correct?
Was there anything more on the beautification side? Because I know there had been some feedback regarding beautification to the beach club. I know we've had in years past where we've had palm trees, some flowers and things like that to really enhance the beautification of the club. Is that something that's going to be in consideration?
Yeah, I'd actually heard you. So, Mr. Farr, yes. So what I did the last 2 years with COVID, and we weren't even sure what would happen at the beach clubs and everything, I reallocated that money from the palm trees, and we bought the cherry trees with that. So that money is still in there, correct? We can do that. They are up there. The amount those palm trees are not cheap, but with everything going on and everything, and assuming that we're going to be back, and that's what it is, we'll order the palm trees.
Great,
but it's
thanks.
in there. Yes, it is in there. Okay, good. All righty. Kathleen, no other questions for Kathleen? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Okay, so Debbie, Kathleen, thank you. So Debbie's here. I'm just checking the time. It's 10:30. Debbie obviously will do rec and parks. And what number is that, Steve? And then Debbie will also do Racket Sports. And then I think we're at let's check the time after that. I'm looking, it's 10:30. Debbie, what time you get? Kathleen, thank you. Are you going to be around? She's getting out of here. All right. So Debbie, what about the lunch? Do you have somebody covering that?
It's to be picked up at 11.
At 11?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the good news is they're picking up the lunch at 11 o'clock. So you're probably going to get your lunch and everything. So let her do this and we'll judge accordingly what everybody's comfortable with.
No. Does anybody care if I have this on?
I'm just going to move away from you. All right. Rec and Parks, Debbie, take it away. What number are you again?
I don't know.
12. Tab 12. That's the 12.
Okay. So as we talked about last week, I'm sure you guys have gone through all of this. We didn't really have a whole lot change between what was at the budget and finance meeting for the Rec and Parks Department. We had already made some increases in class revenue, camp revenue, different things like that to help offset some of the expenses. Most of our, as I explained to you before, some of the line items where you see blank, that money was allocated to a different line item for finance purposes, taxing purposes, things of that nature that Julia had found that we needed to kind of reallocate things and put things in a different location. So some of those blank items, that's where that money went. Doesn't mean we're not holding them anymore, just means it went to a better location for finance purposes. Payroll, I mean, obviously it is what it is as far as the minimum wage. Regular increases, merit increases, whatever is, decided amongst the GM and the board. That's all allocated there. Some of our cost of goods, you'll notice that those numbers will change a little bit as well. As I explained before, Julia has started working diligently. We've been trying for all last year to get the inventory process working in the right direction. And I think this year you'll see a lot better in our cost of goods for the Racket Center, recreation, all our special events and inventory items that we have, being able to manage that better through the system. Now that we can actually manage that through the North Star system. We had some quirks, but I think she's working them out pretty well. Let's see, some of our contract services, as you can see, the farmers market is in here. They do not have a lot of expenses, but you'll find farmers market revenue and expenses on my financial worksheet, just because it's easier to have it all in one location. And you'll see their revenue and expenses in there. But as far as anything changing from the budget and finance meeting, nothing really changed for the recreation department other than I made some minor increases. We had already done that at the budget and finance meeting with some of our fees. Nothing major, just things we had already talked about before.
Debbie, it's Amy.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one question. In the old capital summary page, there was a line for Park and Recs for $25,000. In the new capital summary, Rec and Parks is gone. What happened?
Yeah, the GM reviewed it and took it out. So we are looking at what we can do with that, what Debbie was hoping to do. I'm working with Eddie and Debbie to see how we can do that without incurring a big number like that. So it's taken out. I don't believe it's needed. I understand what Debbie's looking to address. Eddie, Nobi, myself, with Debbie, we believe we can address it in a different way.
John, this is the Bainbridge Park survey by Mista you're talking about?
No,
I can't hear him.
He asked if it was the Bainbridge Park survey. No,
it has nothing to do with that.
it's maintenance to Whitehorse Park.
Yeah, it's let us address it. If there is a need that there is a bigger cost, we'll come forward. But it has nothing to do with that. I just I don't know who asked that, if it was Amy or whatever. I just didn't see it on that schedule when it first went out. So that's on me. That should have come off.
The farmers market, Debbie.
Yes, ma'am.
Has there been consideration for storage given to them? I know that the managers are storing the flags and such in their own home space. And then I also have a question about if there's any financial consideration for the work that the managers do to keep that running and organized.
So as far as a payroll type situation for David and his staff, we have not spoken about any type of payroll for them. They have their space that they make their income from their space, that they have their own vendor spot. So we've never had a conversation, nor have they come to me in reference to that at all. As far as storage,
I'm sorry, is the space given to them gratis, or do they pay the same fee as everybody else?
They do not pay for their vendor spots.
So that's a consideration.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As far as storage, David and I had talked about this before as to where they could store some of their things. They have not said anything else to me about where they want to put their flags. They have been taking care of it, but he and I can certainly have a conversation about what would be best and more feasible for them to store those things here.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
And, the only problem about storage for these guys is that, now it becomes our responsibility, and we want to take on the responsibility of storing anything for them. Because if something happens, then we've got to replace it. And we know that, there's been some problems this year with other operations losing stuff in storage. So listen, that is an operation that if he thinks he needs storage somewhere, then that's on him. I don't think Ocean Pines ought to be.
Where's Ron Fisher?
I told him to stay.
Just
But you don't need him.
Where?
He's going to be online. He's not gonna-
Well, he's running it and he's making money off of it.
And Ocean Private benefit.
To some extent, yes.
Craft shop, sure.
Yeah, so that's true.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and just my 2 cents, if you will, the farmers market is still considered part of our organization. I do, with their expenses and their revenue, things of that nature come through the recreation department. So they are considered a part of our department. And in my mind, storing things for them would just be part of what we would do for them if they needed us to facilitate that for them. It's not like they're just a community organization, but that's just my opinion. I don't know that there would be any issues. I know what Larry is talking about with one of the other organizations, that some of their items have been misplaced. I understand that. But again, the farmers market is a revenue making amenity through the recreation department. So kind of belongs to us and would be our responsibility anyway. That's just my opinion.
Good. Okay. Anything else for Debbie on Rec and Park? She has several other budgets to go through.
Great job. Thank you.
Okay, Debbie, what do you want to do next? Racket Sports?
Sure.
Okay. Debbie, Racket Sports.
So there were some adjustments after the budget and finance meeting, and we had discussed my only increase proposal was to user fees. I was tasked to go back and relook at that, as well as Steve and John, to relook at the amenity fees increase. You will find that that has been done, and you can, that would be what the difference in the revenue portion of memberships would be, as well as the change in the user fees for all three sports at the Racket Center.
Do you want comments on that now?
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
The committee went back, this went back to the committee. The $8, $10 flat fee for all the three sports. And the committee did not agree with those recommendations. And I sent all the board my summary of what the committee said. They did not agree that tennis rates be lowered. They did not like the $8 and $10 model. They actually suggested 10 and 15. They cited the lack of competition in the area for premium tennis courts. They had figures about what the other facilities charge and how they have a 1.5 hour limit on playtime. They have all the figures for Sea Colony. The maintenance for the tennis portion of the Racket Center is much higher. But their main concern was if you lower the tennis part of the user fees to the 810, you're actually hurting tennis membership. And in this proposed budget, we're lowering the individual drop-in rates for tennis while at the same time increasing the cost for the tennis membership. So what will happen is people will not purchase a tennis membership, and they're just going to pay drop-in fees. And our tennis is the deal of the century. If you look around and see what other people are charging, an $8 drop-in fee for premium facility and clay courts is just too low. So they do not agree with that. They really want to see the tennis fee of $10-15. They were also not happy with the 8-10 suggestion for the pickleball platform. They want to see 7 and 8. That's $1 increase. It's a 15% increase since it was raised just recently. They thought that was fair. And we're now seeing much more competition in the area for pickleball. Salisbury's opening courts, Plantation Lakes, and some other places are charging a fee as low as $3. So they strongly feel that this 15% raise is not to drive membership numbers and at the same time not hurt their outside play. And they get a lot of outside play over at that facility.
What are they recommending for non-residents?
They just $1 increase. So they're recommending 7-8, not the 8-10, but for tennis, 10 and 15. They are okay with understanding that the membership rates are increasing the percentage they are. But their goal over there is very, very focused, and it's on how do we increase memberships, not just revenue, but how do we increase memberships? And this suggestion of lowering the tennis rate, I feel will be very destructive to that goal and all of the hard work that facility had done driving memberships. If you look at what they've done with platform tennis and driving and starting a new spec tennis club and everything, they're very focused for not just increased revenue now, but driving that facility in the future. So they strongly are against the proposed user fees.
And I got to tell you, Debbie, you're projecting a loss for this year of $21,500, and then your proposal for next year is $6,500 loss. You know, I don't see how we can propose lower rates when projecting almost $15,000 additional loss to tennis. Like, if I remember correctly, last year we wanted to raise the rates on tennis, and it never happened. The budget process, we approved it, but those rates were never actually
Right. So
released halfway through the year. So I agree with Amy. I think the tennis rates, you got to do something about the tennis rate.
yeah, so Amy, Larry, and the rest of it, I totally agree with everything Amy said. Larry said, Larry, you're right about last year. Whether or not that got executed, I have to. That's on me. I was kind of surprised. I agree. We want to do everything that Amy said, and that I'm assuming you. So, if that's what the board is saying, we're ready to make those changes. To be honest with you, you want us to go forward, Colette?
Yes, I would like us to go forward with what I recommended. I
Yes.
think it's a revenue driver and a membership driver.
Okay, we're on it. Debbie's on it. Linda's got the notes. We will do that. I totally agree.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the Racket Sports?
So, let me know, what about airport tenants? They're budgeted for a lot also. And do you feel that the increase in appropriate?
I do, because what Platform Tennis is doing is the membership initiatives. And just last year, they increased 31 new players just on that court.
Okay.
And they're doing that on a facility that's in the old guard shack as their warming hut. I mean, they're really working hard with what they have to increase that membership drive. And they've got a very outlined, focused plan for the future. So I think if we keep this, my recommendation of the 7-8, only raising it 15%, I think that we'll see the benefit with the membership numbers, and they're doing their homework with driving those numbers. And so I'm really hoping that we see a big drive in how many people join that facility.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're open. I mean, we're ready to make that change if the board says so on that Platform Tennis pricing. What say you, Colette?
That seems to be the consensus in the room, yeah.
Okay.
Rick?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it? Rick? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, done. Got the team on it. All righty.
So what was just decided?
Can you review those?
Can't hear you.
You're muted now.
So what we're going to do is we just want to make sure that she's got all that, and we'll follow up with an email. Linda's writing down her notes. Could you just repeat so that Debbie and we make sure we got all the changes right?
Certainly. So the membership, the increase in the memberships are fine. What my recommendation is that the tennis drop-in rates be $10 for residents, $15 for non-residents. And the pickleball and platform rate recommendation is to only go up $1, a 15% increase. So that would be a $7 and $8. $7 resident, $8
I
non-resident.
want to see an email on this.
Okay.
All right,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that's where what we were talking about for platform was just the dollar. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so we'll put that in an email back to the board, Colette, just to make sure we got it all right. But I got 2 scribes writing it all down. Good. All righty. Anything else on the Racket Sports? A lot has happened down there over the last year. Certainly moving in the right direction. Anything else? Okay, we're going to sign off on that, Colette. I'm just looking down. We have the marina. We were prepared to present the marina, but I know you all want Ron Fisher, who just made it up here. We got a rock star in the building. So I'm going to ask Ron with Debbie to present the marina. Ron's here. And there's a couple little changes, some changes in there, right, Ron? From we got from B&F.
Yep.
All righty.
You got it. Good afternoon.
Morning.
Morning. We haven't made it.
Morning. Yeah, that's right.
We haven't made it to noon.
I'm thinking 3 o'clock. In any case, the marina budget's pretty well straightforward. We were a little conservative on the revenue side, again, because our guess is as good as yours as to where gas costs and oil costs is going to go. I spoke to the vendor yesterday, and they expected ethanol gas at the pump to go to about $4 a gallon by Memorial Day, and our cost for non-ethanol is higher. So I filled up the tanks at the end of the year in anticipation of this. So we have 18,000 gallons on hand right now. We did put in at the request of the Budget and Finance Committee the 4% increase for boat slips. I think that's included in your budget.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, it's all in there.
I've got it. 15 and 25 feet will go to 2,025. 26 to 39 will go 2,755, and 40 to 44-foot will go to 3,890. Swimming racket will be 1,460. Right now, as of today, we have 85 boats on the waiting list. And I just got 2 more requests, so let's make it 87.
Okay.
Any other questions? Of course, our salaries are being adjusted according to the change in minimum wage. This past year, we had 57 days of small craft advisories. 14 of those days were actually weekend days that have significant impact on our revenue. So hopefully we're not going to have that many days this year, but we're being a little bit conservative just in case.
Ron, you said you got 18,000 gallons that you purchased at last year's prices. Are you going to continue to benchmark and I'm just assume that your price was $3.75 a gallon this year, and the marketplace is holding at $4.25. Are you going to charge the $4.25, or are you just going to use your markup rate based on what you normally do?
I'm going to do my markup the way I normally do. I have a minimum return that I've set. I do benchmark with the other marinas, although they know my phone number now, so it's a little more difficult. But I do travel around and make sure that our pricing is competitive. Now, I've kept it a little lower than the other marinas, which paid off this year because we had a lot of big boats coming in during the White Marlin tournament and filling up at our marina. That answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Any other questions on marina? And I just want to point out compliments to Ron and his staff. They've been able to bring in those big boats over the last couple of years, and it's from his marketing and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. If nothing else on marina, I'm signing off. Colette, you all good? Okay. Question.
The small, I'm going to call it a store at the yacht club. It's like a small room at the bottom.
Right.
Utilizing that room.
The office space?
Is she talking about office space?
Yeah.
You talking the office space?
Yeah, she wants to know if you utilize it.
Yeah, we keep some of our extra bait in there as well as our clothing. We also use it for interviews and other things. We're looking at trying to add some additional tackle. I had it inspected this year by one of the wholesalers, and we didn't pass because we didn't have adequate parking, in their opinion. And but I'm still working with a couple other wholesalers to see if we can add more tackle and so on there.
So Josette, and I don't want Ron to hear, but I guess 3 years ago, Ralph and Matt and myself, we talked about possibly reallocating that space to something else. There's nothing on the table, but we do always look at things like that. But in the meantime, it is being utilized by Ron and his team.
Yeah, we use it for winter storage. We have all our life rings and our carts and everything else go in there. So,
and they use that, and they also use it as an office space type area where they have their radar system,
right.
Where they're safe in storage, things of that nature, where they finish up at the end of the day. So it's a multiple use office for the marina itself.
Right.
There are things that you can't necessarily want to leave down at the marina dock.
Agreed. The reason I brought it up, we become a discussion as a possibility for maybe a shared room or as a temporary space for historical data within the community.
So Josette, I actually, and again, things change. Again, 3 years ago, I mentioned that to the Power Squadron or whatever, Dino what was the name? Doris Lloyd. I mean, we can look at that again. It just didn't seem, that wasn't what they were looking for, but we can look at that again.
One of the issues.
Last time they didn't want it.
Yeah, one of the issues I had was we keep a lot of money in that room.
Don't tell her.
Safe is in there. All our
On the down low, Ron.
All right, so next.
It's not there long. It's not
Any other questions on Marina? We do try to look at that space though, Josette. And we're always open to something. Okay, I'm good if everybody's good on the other end. Colette? Can we sign off on Marina? Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, Debbie, how are we looking? Just give us an idea on the food. Half an hour. Debbie said the food will be there at a half an hour. It is 11 o'clock. Just to give an idea what we have left, we have, and we'll do at the end, the replacement, new capital reserves. We have the fire department coming in at 1. That's confirmed. What we can do right now is food and beverage. If your team's up with it, Colette, we're ready. And then this afternoon, we just have replacement, new capital, reserves, and the fire department. And, okay, so food and beverage?
Yep.
All right, Steve, Linda's going to join us also. Come on up to the table. What do you want to start with, Yacht Club? Yeah, whatever you want. Steve, whatever you want. Just tell them the tab. The tab for the Yacht Club is 20.
Yeah, so on the reconciliation, I just from a high level, I put the Yacht Club, Beach Club, and Turns Grill together. They're budgeted at an approved amount, bottom line of about $72,000, which is a $9 decrease. These budgets, as I mentioned in the BNF meetings, are built better than the contract. The target for the contract, which looks at it from a consolidated basis on all 3 amenities, is $190,000 target. We have about $70,000 better than that, closer to $250,000 profit between the 3. We did not make any changes subsequent to the BNF meetings based on no suggested edits there. So, if you want to look at the Yacht Club specifically, as John mentioned, it would be tab 20. And you can see that we have a $94,000 operating profit. And without going through any of the lines, I'll just turn it up.
Sure. Okay, so Steve, great. And then Steve will tie this all together for any questions you have, management fees, bonus fees, how's he done all that. Look, we know it. We've seen it. It's come up in BNF. It is built better than the contract, but lower than the forecast for this year, which is a forecast. Keep in mind, as Steve will tell you, Ralph has talked. We had Ralph here for other meetings with BNF. You can't, I hate to use the word hedge, but it's built in if something happens, weather, COVID, whatever. So we did take that approach with all the amenities, still have the best numbers ever for all the amenities. So it is better than the contract, like Steve said, but not with not as high as the forecast right now. And that's across the board pretty much with a lot of the amenities. All right. With that, Steve's got a lot more detail to give you on the Yacht Club and everything, management fees, whatever, or any other questions you have. Any other questions, board?
No.
Okay. All right. So that's the Yacht Club. And again, they're banquets. They do have the banquets, as Ralph pointed out to me and everybody else. Whatever they achieve this year, they have it to the dollar next year. So that they're staying true to. And the reason is why? He's got the money in the bank. He's got the deposits, and he's very confident on that. So the banquet, which is a big number now, compliments to them, Leah, whatever. They do have that in the same as the forecast, that piece. All right. So with that, next, Steve, what do you want?
Yeah. So each club is 18. We built that pretty much, $100,000 has kind of been that threshold, a commonplace for the bottom line. This year, as John just alluded to, we had record numbers. So we're estimating $150,000. We took it down a little bit. Bottom line is $123,000, which is still a solid performance. If you look at 19, 20, 21, since Matador Companies had it, that's right around the best performance outside of this year. And in 2020, they had about 125,000. So we think that's a fair number.
Any questions on the beach club? So Steve, your forecast is 150.
Yeah.
The proposed budget is somewhere around 125. Let me just, I always like to put it in perspective, and Steve could do this also. If you just look at that beach club property up there, let's take, somebody write it down. If we're budgeting 125,000 operating profit. We got the two leases there. Steve, just help me out. Can I go 150 for the two leases with Leighton?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so just 150. How much is the beach parking revenue?
So like
375, 400.
You take out the leases,
Yeah.
then you get about 400 calls.
All right, so Steve's telling me 400 on the fly. That's 275. Steve, 675,000 for that property over there with minimal investment that we bring in every year. $675,000. Okay, the dumpsters, it's the minimus, right? But 675,000. All I'm asking is that everybody just be aware of this. I wouldn't touch that place, but that's all I'm saying. We invest in it or whatever. And that's not even counting what that pool does over there. 675,000, right? That's all I got on it. Putting it into perspective.
Beach club, are there any areas of concern that you have regarding maintenance, things that need to be done, repairs, so on and so forth?
So, we did, Doug, last year, we did do a lot of maintenance there on the board decking. And we believe we can still go further with that maintenance. We did the whole outside of the building. The year before, we did some inside. Spoke to Ralph several times on it. He's good. We believe we're okay. But obviously, if something does happen, that would be that maintenance budget that you hear us report on every month. Right now, we believe we're okay. Yep, good, because that could be a number. All righty, so that puts all in perspective. We're going to sign off on the beach club if the board is good with that. And then I'm just looking, it's 11:05. Oh, I'm sorry, he's got one more. He's got the grill.
Yeah, the grill is 17. There are changes there. This is where we actually put our proposal up pretty much in alignment with the estimate. Last year was the first year, right? And that the grill,
yes,
grill ran under Matador. That we definitely had some, some early season downtime with COVID, things like that. So, we think that we're definitely in a good place in order to meet what we estimate this year, which is about $63,000 profit.
Just to hand off to me.
Yep. And then I'll hand off to John here.
Okay, so a couple things on that with Ralph not being here, but again, we talk, Steve and I, and Steve is the liaison for food and beverage for me. He does a great job with Ralph and Matt, and Ralph and I talk on an ongoing basis. Again, the numbers, look, it's a new operation and everything, and it's moving it, and it will continue to move this way. Ralph would be the first one to tell you, and he's acknowledged it, that as that golf course, which is doing better and better, and all the outside play, and even the locals that are coming in there, we truly believe as that does better, this grill will do better. Dynamite team down there as well as everywhere else, they're getting that breakfast. So if anything, everything else being equal in the world, we're seeing good trends there.
Don, may I say something?
Yes.
Is that kitchen at the clubhouse? If you go there, the crowd, you all know, we're typical Sunday morning supporters. If a large crowd shows up, the kitchen is often tight, and I know they've talked about it because they can only serve so many at a time. Has that been looked at any further? I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, and actually, Josette, I'm glad you're bringing it up. Quite honestly, and you're right. That kitchen is limited. It's very limited. When we built that building and everything, that was what we had. That was the plan. And you're right. At that time, we didn't. The bottom line is this: we could utilize a bigger kitchen. However, I've had that discussion with Ralph, with Matt. Matt's got background and all that stuff. Nobody's coming forward right now saying to do something bigger there, but you're absolutely right. At times it's at max. Now, what we do or what they do and what's been done before is when they do have the banquets there, they source it out of the yacht club. All the food and everything comes from the yacht club. The last two that I was there, the food was absolutely excellent. So that's how they're working that. And then that revenue and everything, by the way, with the cost goes to yacht club. So if you took down the grill itself, if we really did allocations, we'd probably making even more money than this. And they're going to grow that. So you're right. It's at maximum capacity.
Yeah, you should know that when this was designed, actually, John and I sat down with Matt, and Matt designed the kitchen, understanding, what was coming. And his plan all along was to make the premier breakfast place in Ocean Pines. So I think they can.
That's been achieved.
Yeah, it has been.
It has been achieved. Now, the only knowing the building and because it's what I do for a living, I mean, even to expand within, the only place you could really go would be in that conference room that sometimes do other than that. To redesign the kitchen if that was something to consider.
That would be through the bathrooms and everything else too.
I don't think the bathrooms for that much, are they?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a storage room here, isn't there?
There's a storage.
I know there's a closet in between.
Well, but that holds equipment for the visual system, and the bathrooms are right next to it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we don't have so much space and so much.
No, I agree. Okay.
John.
So, Amy, let me I just want to make one more, Josette. Josette, I'm glad, I'm glad the board is bringing this up and everything. This could be a discussion down the road or whatever. Let us get more history with it. You never know, but you're right. And we did make decisions. We put in bigger fryers, bigger other equipment that Matt asked me for, which was not in the original budget, and we covered it and still brought that building in. I'm so glad we did that because it would have cost us way more money now. Same thing with that patio, getting great use out of that. And but hey, look, we got a lot going on now, but you never know. But I would hope we discuss it again.
Well, the problem is that we're limited in the footprint because of our parking. Right. We can't expand the footprint.
No, that's what I was trying to think within the building. Could it be done if we kind of broke it down? Because I realize you can only serve so many at a time. Typically, we will look at who we're with and make sure that the staff knows to serve the elderly first, and then we go in on the second pound of food.
Yeah. So let me answer Larry's, because Larry's absolutely correct. However, Larry, we do have the seating and everything. That kitchen can't, and this is what Josette's saying, it really is stretched to even supply the seating that we already have. So, but you are right. I could have that situation with the parking, but I do believe that we have some, we do have room there. I mean, that's really all I got.
Yeah, one of the other drivers too is, we've got a management company running the place. I would look to them as being the originators of, addressing any perceived problem that they have with, we can talk about it, but until, our management company comes to us and says, we've got a persistent problem now. We're at capacity far too often. If that comes up, then I think we should have it. But right now, I defer to them and say, we hired you. We expect you to keep an eye on this and advise us if we get to that capacity level more than what you would be as an industry norm. So,
right.
And I do have to respond to, first of all, I understand that, and that's been our mantra, Doug, and I'm not going to disagree, but I am going to make a couple statements on it. First, as I mentioned, I said I talked to them, and you're right. We were not at that position to look at that right now. However, the one thing I would take and disagree again is I'm running Ocean Pines. We do Ocean Pines, not them. But we would be foolish not to listen to them, which is what you're saying. But let's not forget, we are managing. Right. I'm running Ocean Pines. This board is. Not them.
That wasn't suggesting they
would be foolish. Yeah, no, I understand. I just want to put it into perspective. But we would be foolish not to listen to them, right? That's all I have on that.
For input from the people in the operations side. So, yes, I agree with you.
All right, thank you.
I had a question. Has there been any more talk about expanding the hours over there at the clubhouse and how that would generate more revenue, but also expenses?
Yeah, so that, and again, and it's, that discussion does come up on a regular basis, whether it's Judy and John Malinowski, Ralph and myself, and obviously when I say Ralph, I'm including Matt. We have had discussions with that. There has been a little bit with that, especially with the football and all that stuff. So it is something that's constantly looked at. Again, I defer to Ralph and that team says, but we have opened more when we have the golf. So there's more coordination between the golf team and them. Always could be expanded, and we're always looking at that, and it's a team effort.
I'm actually at an event there, and they were seamless bringing in that food. That food was just as warm.
Food's excellent. Food. Last 2 times I was at a banquet there at Josette, it was absolutely delicious.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Okay. Oh, good stuff. And again, all the food and beverage, and Ralph was here, he would tell you, look, he's being conservative. We're trying to look for the proper word, as we were with golf, as we are with aquatics. So just to make sure the board and everybody else understands that, there's a lot going on, COVID, in the weather. So we have that built in, and these are still our numbers, and these are good numbers that this team has brought forward. All right.
So 22 and 23 are reserves and capital. These all changed. So these have the electronic version that I sent last week.
Okay, so while Steve's pulling that, if you remember that schedule that we talked about this morning, this all ties in, and these are all the pieces, and Steve's going to give you all the detail. Steve actually made some changes already, which I think was what Amy was asking for. So Steve will, or I'll take you through it either way, but let Steve take you through the detail to that, and then we'll tie it into that overall schedule that we looked at this morning. Either Steve or myself.
Yeah, so the 5-year projected sheet, Amy, I took the 600 and it was like it changed each year. There was like 630,000 and I think 660,000 in a couple of the out years. I took those amounts out for the irrigation system, and it did have an effect of a couple points, like we said. For 23-24, it goes up to 27.5%. Then it goes up significantly to 29.1%, 29.4%, and 31.1%. So it has an effect down in 26, 27 of about 5 or 6%.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sure. And then, I guess the easiest way is probably just to go through the capital spend before we actually get into the reserve sheets themselves. So on the capital summary, the main changes we made was we took the golf course irrigation out. That was the big ticket item, $600,000. So our total general replacement went down significantly for that. The other thing we did, I'll let Kathleen, since she's here, speak to the aquatics adjustments.
So I think what we did is we had a duplication in the stairs at Swim and Racket, which on the last meeting showed as the first item at $10,000. Also, I had indicated in the last meeting that it was going to take a pool company to come in and install the Triton sand filters at Swim and Racket. So the Triton sand filters has been elevated to $12,000 to do to pull those sand filters out and replace them. That would be a winter project next winter, the following spring previous to opening. And I believe that's the only changes that were made to the aquatics capital sheet.
I do see the supplemental HVAC system.
I don't have the schedule. I don't have the updated schedule.
Yeah, but we decided to do it in general maintenance.
It's not new cap.
Done this year.
Steve, Steve, could you give me a new capital?
Can you say that again? Steve?
Amy, it's going to get done this year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I think.
That's right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. It's fine.
The,
Oh, I got it. Thank you.
the other thing was we added the mower in golf maintenance.
Which was approved by BNF and some other board members in there.
So that was $70,000. That was an add to that.
So again.
Oh, I'm sorry. We also added the renovation also on that sheet. I don't know, John, if you want to speak to that. That's 100.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. I think there's a question, and once there is, I'll tie this all together and I'll talk about the renovation.
I had a question at the last meeting. You had mentioned something about a debranching equipment or something, a purchase of $70,000 that was not the mower.
No, so the debranching, you're right. There was something, Public Works was, I'm trying to think the name of that. No, not the scissor. Yeah, it's not the scissor, it's the Manitou. They were looking, we have a Manitou, they were looking for another one, a bigger one. What happened there, that they were just given an example of what they could use that equipment for. It would be an additional piece of equipment. It would be a want as opposed to a need right now. Obviously, with the fact if we're shorthanded, having that type of equipment helps, but it's not just the debranching. That was just an example, but I don't have it in here. Okay, so if no other questions, let me just tie this in, and the renovations. Let me talk about that. That is kind of, it is new and it's not new. So anybody's been around the last 2 years, the next piece or the next part for this building was to renovate. We were looking at it last year and even like this year, but we're focusing on the clubhouse, the wall there. They're working on that as we speak. But we did want to renovate the inside of the admin building. Certainly the floors, the ceiling tiles, the HVAC system is actually up for a replacement. And the high level estimates I have for that is $125,000. A lot of that, obviously, if it's on here, it's replacement. So I was trying to get it in for this year and to come forward. I'm being told it's possible we can do it, but with COVID and everything else, and I want to focus on the clubhouse and everything else we have. So at minimum, I'm coming forward to ask to put this in the budget for next year, the budget we're working on, I'm sorry, because I'm not sure if we can get to it now. So this is basically the components of this is the ceiling in the admin building, the HVAC system, which Steve helped me out, was it about 40,000 of this 125, 50?
Yeah, I want to say, about a third is the HVAC, a third is the flooring, and then you got ceiling and woodwork.
And then the painting. So a third. The HVAC, which really is needed, but I wouldn't do that until we do the whole building. The ceiling, the floors, the rugs, we were looking at a non-rug type of product. So I'm just asking for approval on that, especially if I can't get to it this year.
Are there any considerations for reallocating space, moving walls, changing offices around, or is that just is that not part of it?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Doug. And this actually, I think I spoke to somebody. I wasn't sure if it was you. That's a different approach. This does, to answer your question, this does not have anything of that nature. We've also, it's a good time to talk about it. We got time. So it's a couple of things. Obviously, the space for board meetings obviously is needed. We're using the clubhouse, but the clubhouse is needed for other events or whatever. Same thing with the acetique room. There's always been a thought here, even before I came here, to possibly build a boardroom here upstairs or whatever. I don't have facts or information on it or what I can or we can or can't do here. If the board wants, I would like to at least look into it as a possibility. and I understand that, at times you'll have this big boardroom or whatever is needed, but I think we should at least explore it. But the bottom line is that's not included here, right?
Yes, and I recall a conversation you and I had probably 3 years ago.
Right.
You
I
had
know I had it with someone.
Changing things around for staff and, better interest and so on and so forth. But if that's not part of it now, that's fine.
Yeah, that's not in this 125. And again, if this is for the next budget, if I can't do it this year, and I would come forward asking for approval or whatever, it's certainly something we can look at. But yeah, it's not in this number. At minimum, we should do this. And it's replacement. And a lot of it is due.
I have another question. Saturday, we're having the discussion regarding the paddle warming hut. That's about a $17,000 expense. Is that something that can get in this budget?
Okay, so yeah, this is actually a good time. I thought it almost came up this morning. And you're right, I don't have this here. Again, I would like, and we can talk now, I would like to talk this out with the board. And I saw that, and I saw the emails, and the lady came to me the first time was she had a 40-foot building that she wanted there. And I was, there is a hut there now, obviously. I've spoken to Eddie. I've been down there. Debbie's been there. I'm being told there is heat there. There's certainly heat there. Debbie has some other ideas as a stopgap to help them with heat during this time. My feeling, and again, this is me coming, it's not in here, but obviously it's what the board says or whatever, or these committees, is, sooner or later that building down there needs to be looked at. I just, putting these shacks up all over the place, it's a stopgap. We have one there and we have heat. So I don't have it in here.
Okay, the purpose of the warming hut, it really cannot be incorporated into redoing the whole facility. The warming hut has to be where it is right now, which is close to the courts. It's not just a heating issue. When that hut was erected or relocated from the south entrance, they only had 2 little courts there. That facility is expanded now, that they have way more people using it. They have additional 4 courts, and there's no way it would serve the sport by having it up where the facility is now. They can't go and warm up there and view play and do the round robin in out. They have to have a hut right where it is. And if they don't have an improved hut, attracting tournament play with what they have right now is impossible. You see that the proposal has a picture in there. You can't get more. I'm uncomfortable being in that room talking to 2 other people. It's that crowded. It's 11 by 14 with counters on either side. It's just not meeting the needs of how this facility has expanded. I can't even really see all the courts at this time.
Okay. So here's how I see this thing. Is you're right. I don't have it in here. I can tell you this, and this is the best from my end, Amy and the board. Can we handle something of that expense nature with everything else that we've put together here? The answer is yes. It won't affect any of our percentages or anything that we're basing this whole budget on. I certainly can fit it in here. If instructed from this board to march, I will march.
It's not just needed, it's detracting from the whole facility the way it is right now. I mean, it's falling apart.
All right.
I'm big smart investment, and it will build revenue because without it, they just can't get tournaments.
Okay, so Colette, look, I've laid it out. I think the best from my end is to tell this board and everybody else, I can handle this in the budget. We can handle this. That numbers, whether it's 17 or 25 or whatever, yes, we can handle it. Yes, it's replacement. Just tell me.
So were we going to have a discussion on this on Saturday?
Yeah, this is the Saturday.
Yeah, let's have the discussion on Saturday and have a
okay.
And again, we still have to present this to the community. We still have to vote on this, so we have time to add it to the budget if we need to.
Okay, I mean, I did the best I can. I'm explaining to you that, but it makes sense to me what you're saying. We can handle this. It may not be the approach I would take, but it could definitely be handled, and we'll march. Okay?
I'll make
Thank
sure
you,
that
Amy.
a representative from that club is at the meeting too.
Okay. All righty. So I spoke about the renovation. We just talked about the hut that's not on there. Let's just say 20,000, so it's easy for me to remember. We increased it for that tractor. I'm just looking. I see it's 70,000, not 75. I don't believe, out of sight of some minor changes or whatever. I think that's basically it compared to what we did with B&F. The number down at the bottom, give or take, let's use 500,000. I explained to you this morning, our contribution, our depreciation, what we call it, is around what, $1.7 million, $1.8 million, Steve? It's on the other schedule. We're using 500. So what does that mean? That means that we are contributing, increasing our reserves on this end, right? And I don't have to take the roads into effect or the drainage. That's separate. We are increasing our reserve just from doing that by approximately $1.3 million. Okay, and I've gone forward the next 5 years. It'll be very similar. That if we stay with the normal contribution, based upon the way things are working out, we're fine. And Steve ran the new percentages, assuming on that irrigation system. So even with the 20,000 for this warming hut or whatever, and if we do it, I would say do it more so, Amy, and more right, if there is such a word, than not. So that's all I got on it, but everything fits. What? Before we go on to drainage and roads.
No question.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Amy. Everybody else thank you. Okay. So Steve, that's your capital, new capital. Any new capital?
No, we don't have anything. We just had the transfer that we proposed for the T-Docs for the $60,000 out of the surplus.
Yes. So Colette again, and I know Larry brought it up this morning, or Doug, or both. And maybe now I'd like to get either the board's sign off on it or instruction. I want to move forward with this. We will make the entries, assuming that the board approves that. And I'm going back to we'll leave the one-time assessment to the side. We're not done yet, but the 350 that Steve has here for replenishing the roads reserve, the transfer to the new capital for the T-Docs to 60,000. Or if I have that authority to do that on my own, I believe I need to get it from the board. I'd like approval from that or discussion or whatever.
John, so I think we can do this by motion, because we're talking about the paying off the balance of the deficit in this year also out of that surplus. So I'd like to make a motion to use the retained earnings currently on the budget on the balance sheet to shift $350,000 to roads to pay off the debt, which I believe is at what, 88,811, and also shift $80,000 into the new capital reserve account for the T-Docs. And did I miss something?
It was 60,000.
60,000.
60,000.
Is it 60?
Yeah.
60,000. Did I miss something, Steve? Did I miss something?
Yeah. Do you want to say? Do you want me to say?
Go ahead.
So, and I'm right about the operating deficit?
Yeah, sorry, Larry, we were pulling our papers and missed everything in your motion.
Well, we didn't miss everything.
Not everything, sorry. The
operating deficit.
The operating deficit piece, which we do not have. Right now we have that surplus of 1.194. Did we mishear you on that?
No, I didn't state the surplus number, but what I said is to transfer 350,000 to roads to pay off the deficit, which you have is 88,811. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay, you're saying deficit within the roads reserve.
It's not 8811.
That's our balance.
Yeah.
in
So,
the roads.
oh, okay, because you got there for the prior period.
Deficit amount.
Okay, it's fine. I see what you're doing, Larry. Go ahead. So transfer to the roads. Go ahead. Any operating deficit if, okay. And what else?
And
T-Doc?
T-Docs.
Okay, good. It's good.
Did I miss anything?
Nah.
No, it's fine. So, Larry, we're with you. It's good. It's all good.
On that motion?
That's the chair's responsibility.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Chair's responsibility.
Okay, motion.
It's the chair's responsibility to entertain the motion.
Okay. I will entertain that motion.
All right, and I'll second it.
Is
Do
there
we need to have a ready?
any discussion?
Yeah, I'd say for the general public, could you reread the motion so that everybody understands exactly what we are proposing?
Okay, oh, we're a little newbies, can you tell? Forgive us, please. Larry with Colette is suggesting to move the retained earnings of 350 the roads, pay off any debt, and that number is
88,811.
60,000 into the T-Doc, and that's what I have. Is that what it's being?
Motion was made by Larry and seconded by.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, can I have, vote, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Rick, so I also. All right, so now.
Colette. So, okay, so Larry, Doug, Colette, whoever's speaking here, I have the transfer for the 350 to 60 approved, and if there's any operating deficit to offset that. So the only thing would be, down the road is the 450. Thank you very much.
Well, John, just to clarify, we put the number 8811 as the operating deficit. So if it's different than that, we need to know.
Okay, yeah, we it's not.
Well, what is?
See, the only thing what I'm saying, Steve, is, hold on 1 second. Let me just tell you.
Yeah, I thought it was 180.
That much.
Yeah. 181.
Larry was 180, but if you think last year they paid off 90. If you look at the chart, they paid off 90.
Okay, so let me just so this clarify. And I know, look, in concept, I know what you're all doing. Larry, I know what you're saying. Doug, you're asking for what exactly is the operating deficit number? The way I'm reading the schedule, and if you have the schedule we gave out this morning, we started off the 21. I'm in the 20. What year am I in now? I'm in the 22 year, right? So the 21 year. In the 21 year, and I'm in the 22 year, but in the 21 year going into it, we did have a deficit of 251,000 rounded. We increased that by 88,000. You're right, Larry and Doug. That was offset by the surplus that we recognized of 1.445 million. So what Steve's saying is the year, it kind of, your retained earnings usually offsets it. If you feel you need a motion for that, that's fine. But the number then that you're closing out on 21, but I'm in the 22 year. If you feel you need a motion for it, you're talking about offsetting the 250 and the 8811. But that's the math of the account, is what I'm trying to tell you. And that already happened. Normally you retain earnings plus minus, but you offset the whole $1.6 million. With the surpluses over the years. Now, I don't know if we ever needed a motion, but if you feel you do, the number that you need to do would be the 250 and the 88, the 251 and the 88, if that's what you're asking me.
I don't think we used a motion.
I don't think you need it.
So I think we did.
If you need it, that's fine. But that's the number to answer your question.
There was a motion originally.
Transfer and things like that. He needs the motion for that.
Definitely. Yep.
250K for like 4 years.
Right.
And then we reaffirmed that every year with a motion. But it still doesn't answer the question, what is the deficit as of the end of year 2020-21 budget, John?
Okay, so let's go back to that schedule. So if you look at the end of 20, fiscal year 20, it was approximately 251,000 operating deficit. So then when you go into fiscal year 21, you got two components to that. You have $1,446,000 to the plus side, and then the negative 88,811, which you're talking about. And then that brings you to a positive 1,194,000. So that answers your question.
Where we will be in April, is that correct?
Where you will be at the end of April 2022, Larry?
No.
2021?
21.
Okay, so where were we at the end of 21? It was 1,194,000. It's yellow on my sheet.
Yeah, there's no more operating deficit. So I think perhaps, unless I'm misunderstanding it, we jumped the gun a little bit because it's already been incorporated.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right?
Probably should have just been the 350 and the 60.
All right, so then I'd like to amend the motion.
Can we amend it?
Well, we can vote. Let's parliamentary procedure. Let's vote to rescind. Upon further investigation, we can rescind the motion that was just passed, and then we can reintroduce a new motion.
Right.
So I'll move to rescind the motion based on the information we just received. Rescind the motion that was just passed.
And I'll second it.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Okay, so now the motion is to, I move to reallocate from our operating surplus $350,000 to the reserve fund, $60,000 to the new capital reserve account.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's more correct. Thank you for the explanation, John.
Okay, yeah, no, these schedules are really good. I hope, and I know Steve will have them going forward. I'm sorry, did you all approve the 450 reduction or not yet? Only kidding. All right.
Thank you, John.
All righty, so Steve, new capital, there really wasn't any, right? So let me just, again, put it into perspective. So the team didn't have anything specifically for new capital. I did not, or we did not allocate anything from the replacement reserves. I believe that's at the board level, but just to let you know, and obviously we did not do any reclass, nor, for that fund that you have. I believe that's at a board level, so we haven't done anything there. All right, so with that, next, Steve is ready for roads. What do you got? Roads?
Yeah, we can look at just the roll forward schedule and the reserves in 22. So that highlights all the key items outside the general replacement that we just talked about. You can see the 492, 255 there in replacement. That represents the capital budget, bringing us down to a balance estimated at the end of 23 of just roughly $6 million. We talked about bulkheads this morning. That's our estimated spend on the bulkheads P&L that we went through, 1.169. The contribution in there hasn't changed from the last rendition. It's 1.053, keeping the differential rate at 615. I did mention that we increased interest income a bit, so that's 60 and 15,000 comes to that $75,000. On the roads piece, then that's the highlighted yellow that we just basically had approved, the $350,000 surplus allocation and the $60,000 surplus reallocation of new capital for the T-Docs. So that now is approved. And then we also have the transfer in from the casino funds. $150,000 is our estimate of revenue. Next year, we split that out between drainage and roads, $350,000 roads, $100,000 drainage. In terms of our estimated spend within those two, Eddie and Public Works and Company basically were able to give us estimates of 350,000 and 400,000, still giving us a balance within those two reserves at the end of the budget year next year. So you can see about $6.7 million in reserves, about $6 million of that being the general replacement number.
I need to see that. So we transferred 350. Okay, so let me just put this in perspective and everything. And again, it goes with that, what BNF recommended. So the board just approved the transfer out of the surplus reserves, the 350,000. Steve has that reflected. We're going to put in from the casino reserves, normally from our budget, 350. That gives us 700,000. We've been marching to the tune of three miles plus. That's a charge of 350,000 for this proposed budget, bringing me down to a balance of somewhere around 350 to 360. That would be kind of building up a reserve. BNF recommended in DMA, they were talking a number of $1 million. When we looked at that schedule that we just were looking at, even with that transfer of the 350, and I have the estimated 450, I still have a balance of $1.4 million. What I'm recommending, and this is a good time to say, is that this board then, if you do want to have a road reserve to build towards that million, maybe out of that $1,422,000 that I believe we will have, we have, that we allocate maybe another 350 there, and we build over time to get to the $1 million. So, for instance, this year coming up, we should have another surplus, and then next year at this time, we would be speaking to you about building in an additional 300. Okay, so everybody got that. So we are building up that reserve for roads. It's just not all in one shot, but I just spelled out to you all how I would do it over the next year.
Yeah, so John, from a board level, the idea is, number one, we contributed an extra 350 to the road reserves, and the sense is that we want to continue to do that next year, assuming that we'll have some sort of surplus.
Exactly, Doug. So two pieces. I hope that the board continues with that plus minus account that I spoke to you about this morning, and that possibly there would be, but again, we're too early to talk about that, but right. And then build up this reserve here, correct. I'm just talking another 12, 15 months, and we'll probably be where everybody wants us to be.
That's in line with the summary that came from the budget.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, Doug, you're spot on. And then Steve's got it down there on green. So you can see, we are addressing that again, strongest on the reserves we've been in the 12 years that I've been here. Okay. All right, what else you got? So roads, you got drainage?
Yeah.
Okay, I got the fire department here. Let Steve we're on a roll here. Let him just tie this in with the drainage. And then I got the fire department outside ready to rock.
Yeah, I think I touched on the drainage. So we just contribute the 100,000 out of the casino funds. We have some work that we potentially have budgeted for $400,000 for next year. Still gives us, I'm sorry. That's right.
No,
you took my capital sheet.
You're good.
But I don't think that changed. So I think our bottom line still is $200,000.
Yeah, Steve's right. He's right. There's your 400. We did allocate out of casino. This is something new. Steve has been tracking that. Piatti from BNF. Credit to the BNF. We have that extra 100. We have it in there. He's right. We have 400,000 estimated spend. Again, the most we've been doing over the last 3 years in drainage, and we continue. That'll give us a balance of 200,000 for emergency. Now, we have been funding drainage over the last 3 years. All something new from what I've been seeing over the years.
Well, my question, John, is should we look to be strengthening that reserve account too, at this point?
So, I mean, you know, so look,
No, but I don't, as we're seeing with the road reserves, that's not going to work out real well.
So here's my, there's only so much we can do with the team we have. We brought in that Louisiana company, and we've had Chase here again. That's the gentleman. His prices did go up. We have an estimate, which is in that 400, to do, I don't know, 8 to 10 pipes with the liner. It's just that's spend that I have in there, and that's about as much as we can do. But sure, I mean, if you want to add a couple 100,000, you have the surplus, Larry. I believe we'll have more when we finish out this year. But if you want to add a little bit, I think the balance sheet can handle it. I just, right now, that's about as much as we can do with the team we have, though. Keep in mind, Larry, the drainage also includes in the public works, what we call maintenance of, and we spend a couple, what's the number, Linda, 150,000? Yeah, it should give me a nod. So, we also spend that, and we've pumped that up over time. And again, that's about the max we can do with the team we have.
And we were contracting some of that out, right?
Correct. We did contract it out. It did become expensive. Because like anything else, but if we can get the right price, Eddie and Nobi know, and Justin, that, we're open to that. But you're right, where we can, within reason we do, or if we have an emergency, yes. But it is expensive. The best thing on the outsourcing contracting out is the gentleman from Louisiana with the pipeliners. It's big. And I'm going to do the max, whatever he can do. And that's what we're doing. It's around 250,000 out of that 400 that you see there. Okay. That's all I got on that. It's a lot. Colette, what say you?
Okay, I think we're ready.
All right, thank you. I have a fire department out there ready to go. That will be the last section outside of any review or comments or whatever.
Yes.
Okay, so Colette, I have the fire department here, Dave, Steve, and Harvey. Harvey, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, so the same team that presented to B&F, and they're ready to go. So with this, fire department, Dave, you said you're in?
Yes, sir.
All right, go get them.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thank you for the opportunity to come in again and discuss the budget with you. We are looking forward to it. I guess we can go through, unless you have any questions right now, we'll go through it the same way as we went through it the last time, starting at the top, et cetera. I'm going to start with member benefits. I'm in the green area. If you have the same chart I have, it's 4,300. The member benefits which are staying the same, $9,000. That's annual banquet. That's top responder awards, gym equipment. We purchased a treadmill this past year for our gym at North Station. It's not really a gym. In North Station, we have a fitness room upstairs. You're welcome to come up and use it anytime you want. But we purchased a new treadmill for the one that broke up there. This category also considers the food for the canteen. When we have major incidents, we have a group of people that come and help bring refreshments. That's the canteen group. And that's this category also. And also dues and subscriptions, for example, the dues that we have to pay for the Firemen's Association, Fire Chiefs Association, and as well as the Maryland State Firemen's Association. Member physicals, both the volunteers and the career staff have member physicals on an annual basis. This figure of 7,000 represents that. Utilities and expenses, again, utilities and expenses, water, sewer, gas, electric, et cetera, et cetera. And we obviously just increased it with the cost of living, et cetera, any inflation. Repairs and maintenance. During this past year, the 66,000, during this past year, we had mold remediation. You are aware, we've discussed this, that the South Station is in fairly poor shape. It is in need of reservation. We did a feasibility study. We're working on finalizing that feasibility study, but it's in very bad shape. We remediated the mold that was in the living quarters. However, we still have a lot of mold left. We have drainage issues. We mentioned to you that the gas heaters in the bay, the gas lines fell out of the ceiling. We had to remediate that. We had to have a compressor at the North Station that died, and we had to have somebody come in and work on that. And of course, we talked about the feasibility study. So that's repair and maintenance. Okay.
Okay, communications maintenance at 8,000. And what that covers is radios, supplies for the radios, microphones, and radio cases. The fire expenses, you'll see a small increase there, 33,000 to 40,000. And we increased that. What we did this year, we're about 24K into this already. We had to get some new DeWalt heavy duty battery operated tools, a few gas meters, some lockers for the North Station, various fire equipment, which includes appliances for the engine. Operative IQ, we also use that. What Operative IQ is an inventory management system. So everything that we have on the fire trucks and ambulances is actually inventoried through that system. As far as expiration dates and all that, we get dinged and it'll let us know when things are going to expire, excuse me. So we increased that a little bit to cover some of those expenses.
Okay.
Yep.
I want to jump back if I could. I apologize. I'd like to jump back to 4,600 repair and maintenance. What I told you is what we did this past year, but I'd like to tell you why we brought that up to 80,000. We anticipate, and this is what we anticipate right now, unless we have an emergency. We anticipate 21,000 for an expansion of the living space for additional staff into the storage area. When you walk through, you got a sense of how crowded that living space is. What we're trying to do is make it more livable for our staff. We also need to put in a new alert system in North Station. We had it crashed as a result of getting hit by lightning. And so that's a $20,000 job. Repair and clean and polish the South Station flooring, which hasn't been done for 5 years. That's $4,000. We need to replace an HVAC unit there. That's $16,500. We also want to replace the drop cords and the reels in the engine bay. That's $1,500. We need to replace the floodlights that are in the parking lot. Some are already dead, but we want to replace them with LED, and that's another $2,000. And then we have about $15,000 worth of mold that we need to remediate. As a matter of fact, just 2 nights ago, we found an entirely new area of mold in the training room at the very front where the windows are. And it's an extensive area. You may have seen it when you walked through, but we just found that. All right, I'm going to jump down. So anyways.
Dave, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You said that it was $20,000 because of a lightning strike to a system in the north building?
It is the alerting system in the north building, North Station.
All right, so where is the insurance company in this?
I do not have the answer to that. I apologize. I do not have the answer to that.
Did the strike happen?
That was what, a year?
So, yeah, so Larry, if I may, lightning did, and it did knock out the, and I'm going to unfortunately have to correct you a little bit on that.
Oh, very good.
It knocked out the internet service. So the switches, the modems, all that, we replaced all that. The alerting system that Dave is referring to is a little bit different. Inside of that building, being all metal, it's very hard for the signals to penetrate that building. So sometimes our pagers do not activate, the radios do not work. So what the alerting system is going to do is it's actually going to alert when we get a call. There are lights in the ceiling and also buzzers and sirens that actually go off. Red for fire, blue for medical, and then there's another color. So that's what the alerting system is.
That was not knocked out by lightning?
No, we don't have that. That's what was knocked out was the internet switches, the modems, and all that. And I do not remember exactly what the cost was to repair all that.
Yeah.
But my question still is, did that claim get filed with the insurance company? Because that would be covered under your policy.
I can't answer that question right now, Larry.
I can follow up on that. All right, I am down
I
to,
don't think it was that much money. I think with the
Yeah.
switch, because I don't think they were talking about less than $1,000.
I'm a little confused. I understand the question Larry's asking.
yeah.
So, do you or do you not have the alerting system right now?
The alerting system that we have right now isn't working in a large portion of the building. At our board meeting last night, we discussed that because when we have individuals that are sleeping in the bunk rooms upstairs, they can't hear the alerting system. They actually have to put their pagers out at the window, on the windowsill.
And that was affected by the lightning strike?
No, that was that. I confused the two pieces. I apologize for that.
Yeah, I was getting confused. I didn't.
Yeah,
know.
no, that was my fault. I confused you.
So in essence, this extra spend is to address a deficiency in the current alerting system.
That's correct. That is correct. Right?
Yeah. And I believe we'd have to go back and actually look. The actual loss was less than $1,000. It was the internet switch, which I believe was $500, and the modem, which was a couple $100. We're not talking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 of a loss from a lightning strike.
Right. But the alerting system, that is a bid that we got for $20,000 to put in an alerting system that works through the entire building.
All right.
Doug and Larry, does that answer you?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to jump down to fire police. You see $4,000 there, which we this past year we bought road flares, we bought wands because our wands were breaking. We have the signs that I had mentioned last time we met. We have now emergency incident signs. So, I mean, they're large and they're on frames that we can post a couple of 100 yards ahead of the incident so that the drivers are aware that there is an incident further down the road. Those cost a bit of money. The cadets, you want to talk about cadets?
Cadet expense, we added a line item for this. With our cadets, it's very important, no matter what type of membership that you're identified or identifiable to the public, to the homeowners when we have calls. So this includes shirts, hats, helmets, and stuff like that for them. Moving down to turnout gear, 25,000. We are looking at that basically gives us about 6 sets of gear, and that has to be replaced. There's a 10-year cycle on gear. We don't do that all at once. That's kind of spread out. That is spread out over several years, so we don't have one lump sum that we have to do. So we replace about 5 to 6 sets every year.
On the department uniforms, as I think we mentioned last time, rather than, we're getting economies of scale as we set up a store so that we could purchase a large amount of items so that we could then sell it to our members. But rather than piecemealing, we decided we get T-shirts, job shirts, and everything and make in bulk. So we are still in the process of doing that. Harvey, you want to talk about EMS expenses?
EMS expenses would be medical equipment that we have to purchase to restock, to supply our ambulances up to the state standard. Plus, we have maintenance contracts on our cardiac monitors, our thumpers, for lack of a better term. We call them Lucas devices. That's what they are. And our stretchers and our loading system. So that $40,000 covers all of that. The billing contract.
I had one question about the EMS expenses.
Yes, ma'am.
That amount is for all 3 life support ambulances?
Yes, ma'am. Normally, we maintain a stock of equipment and disposable supplies that we use. We've increased that budget request this year because of difficulty getting some things, but it's for all 3 ambulances and the contracts on all of those durable equipment pieces.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You want to talk about
the billing contract? That's just the 8%, the 4804, the $38,000 is 8% of 475,000, the projected billing income. So we contract with Medical Claim Aid in Denton, Maryland, and they get their contract is 8% of what they collect, not what they bill for, what they collect.
Okay, moving down to insurances. We have insurance with Dealey. That's our new insurance plan. We have insurance with Selective Insurance, and we also have CNA Surety for our bonds. You want to cover training?
Yeah, the $6,000 for training is for firefighter training. If we want to bring in speakers, or if we need to send some of our members out to specialized training. Harvey, will you cover apparatus maintenance and you handle that part?
Apparatus maintenance increased from 58 to 70 just for the fact that our trucks are getting older. Our oldest truck that we have in service, a reserve engine, is a 1995 model. So parts are getting more and more difficult to get. Things are getting hard to work on. Things are costing more. And as you know, having a car gets older, you have to pay a little bit more for the maintenance. That same thing's happening with our fire trucks.
On the office expenses, we reduced it because we don't believe we're going to require what we did last year. And these are just your simply basic office expenses. Public education, those are the coloring books, the helmets, and all of the stuff that we buy to go out to Shawl School, MBS, and also for our open house that we have on an annual basis. The professional fees are our accountant, our auditor, and our legal fees.
Fuel, we increased that just $2,000 just because of the price of fuel these days. $10,000 for special events. What special events covers is should we here in Ocean Pines have a major snowstorm, hurricane, any type of weather event where we need to bring on additional staffing, we can pull from this $10,000. It also will cover meals should we have volunteers that need to spend the night in the station due to the storms that are coming up.
If there's no questions on that section, we'll move down to compensation and related costs, and Harvey will take that.
I have a couple of questions, gentlemen.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and this is just to educate myself on an engineering company. I don't do what you do, but thank you for doing what you do. So, who takes care of your website currently and stuff like that? I just kind of want to get into a little bit about these expenses and where that would fall. I'm trying to understand.
So we have an individual that's in the fire department that maintains that for us. So we do a lot of that in-house. We do have a company called Chief Backstage, and what that actually does is that is our semi-alerting system where we get it on our phones. We get directions on our phones. We also have TVs in the station. That's all kind of tied together.
Scheduling as well.
Scheduling is on the Chief Backstage. But as far as the website goes, Josette, we have an individual that handles that in-house for us.
Okay, and thank you. And your Facebook, etc. site, which is kept up pretty well.
Yes, he does all of that.
He does all that, same individual.
Yes.
And also your marketing, where does that fall? You know, to get people involved. It's at your I wouldn't say events, but it's office expense, I think.
Well, basically, the marketing that we do is we do it through the website. We do it through Facebook. We do it through Instagram. We have the signage in front of the two stations that are the recruitment signage. We work with Josh also on some of that. And in the newspapers also, we work with Greg Ellison, with the Bayside, Tom Staus, with the Ocean City, right?
Progress.
Progress. Yeah, Ocean Pines Progress. Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking is at the last meeting, I heard a couple key items from you guys that you were asking for some. So basically, one of them was fundraising, Which are you? Yeah, session, right? So, I did do a little homework and I want that.
Josette, we're having a real hard time hearing you.
We're losing you.
You're
We're
going
getting
in and out.
Yeah.
Okay, so hang on a second. You guys hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you guys were into this, I did a little homework to try to help you out. My thought is that you probably need marketing more than anything to bring individuals in to be able to accommodate the needs for your vehicles. Because I think the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an expert, you are, but per vehicle, when you leave the station, you need to man a truck, you need 4 people on, right?
Yes.
Yes, it depends. Yes.
Yes.
Right. I mean, and I'm going to say 4. It would have to be on site. We talked a little bit about, so that's why you guys do cross training, right? Your EMS and your firefighters can do the job either way, right?
For the career staff, yes, ma'am.
For the career staff, yeah.
And I think we asked the question, and you may have answered. Forgive me if you did, and I did not get that data. But I think we asked how many full-time employees North Pines have, as well as volunteers. And it's really just a numbers thing. And I was just curious for a couple of reasons, but I'll explain it to you here shortly. How many volunteers do you have currently? Is that a number that you guys could share with us?
Yes, roughly it is 40 volunteers.
Okay.
And that goes amongst the entire conglomerate of membership. So some are associate members, some are fire police, some are administration, and then some are actual firefighters. So in an ideal world, yes, 4 people on an engine. That's a perfect world. That's a perfect scenario right there. Do we get that all the time? Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, probably not, right? So when you leave the station, we talked about this, and this is really just to educate myself.
Sure.
A key conversation that we had was the 6-minute response time. Is that 6 minutes to get to the fire station to leave, or 6 minutes to get anywhere in Ocean Pines?
6 minutes to get to the actual emergency scene.
Oh, that's very good. Impressive.
Yeah. Yep.
Across, let's say Baltimore County's 3 minutes, but it's really 3 minutes to leave the station. And that's impressive.
We are out pretty quick. I would say it was less than 6 minutes on the gas leak we had, on the major gas leak we had yesterday. It was less than 6 minutes before we arrived on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I made a few calls, and forgive me if I'm overstepping my boundaries, but when we started talking about this, the squirrel started running upstairs here. And so if you guys would consider this, I did a little homework for you. I heard that you needed help. So I would like to share some data with you. My first perimeter was I thought, well, we need a commercial to be running in Ocean Pines. And just listen to the numbers, and I'm going to read you these numbers, and you can tell me if this would help you or not. And if it's something that we could do, then we could try to make this happen. I asked a local company. I'm part of a business group, and so I pulled some of my resources, and I asked if I was to run a commercial in the Pines to help promote folks to come up to be volunteers, but more importantly, to find you additional professional to pull them in for you. What would it cost to, first of all, to do a commercial? So I want to share some of this data with you. This is $6,000, and the dates to be determined. However, it would air for 8 weeks here on both MediaCom and Comcast area, right? So, but I asked them to break it down. And we have a lot of the younger generations, they may do Roku and digital streaming and different things like that. So it's a little different world today. And then I asked specifically, because my first question is, what can a 60-year-old man in the neighborhood for? How can he help his fire department? And so that's really where a lot of these conversations come from. So, and we can continue that conversation, but the quote was,
Okay, so TV portion, the older volunteers, let's say 50 plus, these commercial could reach 1,860 commercials, 28 networks, reaching 127,308 adults, 50 plus. The cost for that was quoted at 4,500. And I'll get to my point in a minute. The digital streaming, targeting the younger volunteers, 25 to 49, reaching 35,714 viewers, and that would be a $1,500 expense. The video would then show on-demand on-demand programming, online streaming, Roku sticks, users, Apple's TV users, Fire Sticks, desktop users, mobile phones. During news shows, any video show may pull up to a typically a 25 to 49-year-old iPad user, such. By using television with streaming, they are reaching all possible viewers in those age groups, no matter how they consume the production. To create a production, it would be based on stock photos, still, or using videos, and costs would range from $600 to $1,000, and that would include script writing, shoot, edit, and final product for TV, digital, and social media. Because once we could establish a good commercial to get your people there, to get those volunteers that are needed, instead of just a sign, that would then allow you to find the professional firefighters that bring them to our community, but it would also allow you to promote the community through the television, local channels. And I think it's important. It would be Ocean Pines and Ocean City, basically. And I don't know this name, but I'll say it. A gentleman by the name of Dave Messick of Unseen Productions, and you guys may be familiar with this, I'm not, has fire footage of which could save money on the production. If they are allowed to use it, we could do that as probably indicated. That they would hold a production meeting to work out the talk about Saturday. No, I understand that, but I'm here talking numbers so that maybe we can.
I really like where you're going with this.
Me too.
I really like where you're going with it.
So the idea is that if we take a look at that, take a look at your social media, and work on promoting Ocean Pines Fire Department and actually bringing the fire department closer to the members of Ocean Pines, as in creating more events and make you guys the front guys so people can. I want to be like them. Look at them. Look what they're doing. These guys are volunteering. Everybody's got the same heart. We're all in this together. So
I'm sorry. I was going to say, could we get together with you and maybe the vendor that you're talking about and try to explore this further?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It doesn't sound like this is the budget request for this year.
It will not, but they are, one of the first things they indicated, Madam Chair, was that they really need to get full-time employees, and they needed additional employees. And I'm trying to give you a source to get them.
Yeah.
I think I'm taking this offline.
Okay.
And getting together and discussing it.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
if there's some action the board needs to take to support it, we can consider it.
I would appreciate that. Okay, that sounds great. You guys good with that?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Good enough. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. We're over to you.
I didn't know if anybody else had any more questions about your section.
No, if you have no more further questions on the volunteer side, we're going to move to the career paramedic firefighter side with Harvey.
So the bottom section, compensated and related costs, calculated out. This is based on adding additional employees that we are requesting and providing insurance, retirement, et cetera, for 2 people that we already brought on full time that already did work for us. That way we could cover additional shifts. So this is a total of 17 full-time employees, 16 of them being either EMT or paramedic firefighters, and 1 being our administrative assistant. Total salary 1.191 and change. The Medicare and FICA, 7.35% of that number is $191,130. And then insurance deductions. Each full-time employee is eligible for our Care First Blue Cross health insurance, And that our policy is an HSA policy and it has a deductible. The fire department provides that employee with that deductible as a benefit. So if you're a single employee with no dependents, you get $1,500. If you're married or have 16 kids, you get a total of $3,000. So that's $39,000 based on that number of 17 people. Health insurance cost, $150,000 for all of those employees, and then the pension cost, 4406. The pension cost is 8% of the 1.191 million. Workman's compensation is calculated out as $3,733 and change per person. EMS training increased significantly because of the way it's calculated. We in Maryland are required to be nationally registered paramedics. So we are. That requires 60 hours of training every 2 years. So that $13,500 is essentially each employee's hourly wage, not subject to overtime, times 30 hours per year. EMS uniforms, each employee is allowed to spend up to $400 for uniforms every year. And then I calculated the cost of employee physicals required by NFPA for the paramedic firefighters or EMT firefighters, $200 each. We get those done usually at 10th Street Medical Center in Ocean City, which is part of AGH. So that's $3,200 per year. So that brings the grand total.
Are there any questions related to the career?
I have a question. So on the CMS training, the numbers 6,000 to 13,500.
Yes, sir.
Correctly, you said that's for the salary for that training that they have to go through, but shouldn't that salary already be built into the line 202?
Many times, sir, this training we do, for instance, the first 4 days of February, we're having a paramedic recert. So each employee will come extra to that training. There'll be extra time that they're not on shift. So it's extra time. So it's calculated out that it covers that full 30 hours per year. And many cases, what our folks have to do, because training is so difficult to get down here, they'll have to go to another county, to another program, and they can't do that while they're working. Certainly, if they are working on their shift, they can participate in that training. But many times we have to have extra staff come in to cover those hours. So those folks don't have to leave their training, because if we leave our training, we don't get credit for it. We have to be there the whole day.
So my question then too is, why is that increasing by over 100% from last year to this year?
Because it wasn't calculated properly, sir. Honestly, it wasn't calculated properly.
Any other questions about this section?
I think the number would go up if they increased their other employee by two.
Two people, yeah.
So actually, Ms. Wheatley, it's additional 4 people requiring training, because we added 2 full-time staff already, and then we're requesting 2 more. So it actually adds 4 people to the training.
So that's part of the increase, and then there was some amount of money that was not properly allocated last year, and that 6,000, that 1,000 should have been more.
Yes, ma'am. I believe it should have been more. Yes, ma'am.
And where was it allocated last year, you know?
Well, we did have training. We had a number of training sessions last year. I'm sorry, I don't have those exact numbers. And I think those were provided to you for the actual P&L. You may have those numbers.
They get the P&L.
I can get back to you with those actual numbers that we actually spent for training last year if you'd like. I'm happy to do that for you, but I don't have those in front of me. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's divided that way there, because but I can go back and calculate the hours of training and calculate it out that way. It's what I have to do. Because when it gets lumped into your payroll, it just lumped into your payroll. So I would have to go back and look at what training each individual went to, how many hours, calculated out that way, and then come back with that number.
And so last year was that it was lumped into the payroll?
Yes, ma'am.
Salary cost. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. But it's over and above the payroll because it's specifically for training because by the federal labor law, in order for somebody to maintain their current licensure certification, the employer is responsible for paying them to go to that training. So that's why it's added in there.
Yeah. No, I understand now where it was allocated by.
Okay.
All right. If there are no more further questions on that, we're going to move into the column on the upper left, which is the revenue column.
So let Harvey talk about the EMS billing.
You want to talk about EMS billing?
So the calculated estimate for EMS billing did not change. The reason for that is we're kind of hopeful sometimes that we're calculating this correctly, but we're at the mercy of insurances. We're at the mercy of reimbursement times. We're at the mercy of people, doing their jobs and getting things done. We had estimated 475 last fiscal year. So we're estimating 475 this fiscal year. So actually we're being hopeful because I have a report from the billing company for all of 2020, which is calendar year 2020. We actually collected 440, not 475. So I did, go ahead.
I am still logged in.
So I did some additional calculations. Hopefully, we're working on the billing this year with the billing company and what's going on. And hopefully our projection this year is a little bit lower than our actual, but won't know that until we decided we get reimbursed. Usually Medicare is really quick about reimbursement, about 2 weeks, maybe 3. But private insurances are much lower. But in general, we're averaging this year a collection of an average of $427 and change per call, and we should end up with a total of 1,149 transports for the year. But that's an estimate as well for this calendar year, not this fiscal year. Sorry if that doesn't make sense.
Can you give me that estimate number again for the call? Oh, what was it, 1,100?
1,149 transports. We only bill and get paid for transports. So a member of the Budget and Finance Committee, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name, had asked how we bill, what we bill, etc. And we're working on learning more about that process. I can tell you that there are a number of folks in Ocean Pines that have no insurance. We get 0 most of the time. There are a number of folks in Ocean Pines in our response area that have medical assistance paid for by the Centers of Medicaid Medicare Services. We're allowed to bill and collect $100. The highest bill I've seen billed and received in this calendar year 2021 that I was working on is $1,305 paid for 100%. We have such a broad range of what we can collect, but many, many times, unfortunately, which brings our average down to that 427, we collect nothing. And of course, in our agreement with you back in 2009, we don't balance bill any of the folks in Ocean Pines. And that's a few dollars, in the grand scheme of things a year. This year, it's going to be about $55,000 that is extra we don't bill for because of our agreement with the folks in Ocean Pines.
Are there any further questions on the EMS billing?
Okay, county fire funding. So how this is broken down is we get $215,000 from the county, a one-time grant, which is 35, brings that to 250. And then we have another 50,000, which is called pass-through money. So anytime we go outside of the gates of Ocean Pines, that's an extra $1,000. We project that to be about 50 calls per year. Harvey, can you go over the EMS?
The county EMS funding comes from Worcester County. Basically, they have a formula that works out the number of you get a certain amount of money for one ambulance that's available to be in service. We have 3. You get a certain amount of money for each full-time equivalent employee. You get a stipend for part-time employees. You get some money for equipment, but the big part of that budget is they currently pay us per transport to a medical facility. So we transport somebody to Atlantic General Hospital, we get about $200. If we transport somebody to Title Health, we get $200 plus a little bit of a stipend for mileage with folks in our first response areas. So everybody that's in Ocean Pines, at the commercial area in front of Ocean Pines, some of the area in the Atkins Road Triangle can be figured in that. If we have to go to a second due call where we are assisting another company because they're already out, occasionally, very, very rarely, do they come here. But if we go to Showell or Bishopville or Berlin or Ocean City and we transport that patient, we get $700 from the county. So this is how much we got last year. So we can't guarantee we're going to get the same amount next year. It's based on the formula, the fixed formula for ambulances and personnel is fixed, but the transport numbers can go up and down. As I said, this past year, 2021, we had 1,149 transports that would be reimbursed at the county level.
Yeah. Going back to the discussion we had when we were doing the review with the finance committee, I want to make sure I thought I heard something. I need a clarification. Is that you only get paid if you do it. Transport, you don't get paid. You just show up. In other words, somebody shows up and goes, "I'm feeling better." You can't charge for that if you don't charge for that. Did I hear that properly? Did I miss it?
So after our discussion, yes, sir, you're right. So after our discussion at that meeting, I did some more research, and which is where I come up with all these numbers that I'm giving you. And I spoke to our billing company. Basically, if we bill Medicare, insurance, Blue Cross, Medicaid, whatever, we must have a patient in the ambulance and the wheels have to turn. We can bill that patient's insurance and we can collect from that patient's insurance. If we do not transport that patient anywhere, we cannot bill their insurance, and we do not bill them for just a response. So essentially, along with those 1,149 transports, there were 458 times in 2021 where we went to someone's house, either treated them or not, and we did not transport them. So we cannot bill their insurance, and we don't bill them for their response, for our response to them. That was 458. Adding on top of that the ambulance goes on every fire call per the county standard.
Okay, let me ask a question. If you go out on a call and you treat somebody and the EMS worker feels that there should be a transport because of the medical necessity that EMS worker, EMS professional is seeing, it's up to the patient to make a decision about
if the patient is competent to make a decision on their own, it's up to the patient. So what we do is ask some questions about orientation. Do they know what's going on? Do they know what happened to them? And if they don't want to go with us, we discuss with them, and you may understand the term AMA, against medical advice. So we discuss that with them. If you don't go to the hospital with me, you may be having a heart attack. You may be having a stroke. Your sugar may drop again. You could fall down again and whack your head. And bottom line is we let them know of their risks of not going to the hospital. They sign that they understand those risks and they don't want to go to the hospital. That's called a patient refusal of services. And we document that as such. So there are times, many times that folks are sick and they don't want to go to the hospital. And, we saw this a lot in 2020. Folks, we'd go to somebody's house and they'd say, please don't take me to the hospital. The COVID patients are there. I don't want to go. I know I'm sick. I'll do the best I can. I don't want to go. We don't get paid for that, except from you, from your budget, your support.
So they acknowledge your recommendation and
they acknowledge, yes, ma'am. They acknowledge our recommendations and their risks of not going to seek medical treatment.
Okay, and then that covers you liability wise.
Well, you hope so. That's the idea.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You guys do a tough job, I think.
It's fun though.
You want to cover Amos?
Yeah.
I have a question. This is Amy Pack. I'm not on camera. My question was regarding your call statistics. I keep hearing how the calls are going up, but when I looked on the website, it actually looks like your calls are going down. So I don't understand. Like in 2019, the EMS calls were 1,762, and then they went down to 1,636, and they went down again to 1,551. Can you address that? Are you accounting it differently with this transport number, or is that the total EMS calls?
I believe. I'm sorry, ma'am. Just give me just a second. Who puts that information on the website?
Joe.
That would be Joe.
Okay, so I'm not positive where Joe has gotten that information. I think some of it may be transport, some of it may be information we get from the dispatch center. I'm not sure exactly where that number comes from. I did not go all the way back and research 2019, 2020, some of 2020, but all of 2021 about these number of billing questions. Essentially, I think the number I came up with for 2021 for total calls was 1,920 total calls. Now, what gets put on the website probably tracks the fire calls from those, but I can't.
Another column for the fire department. So if I go online as a member of the public and I look at what that says, it's 1,833 calls. So again, I'm looking at the numbers on the website, and your call volume seems to be going down.
That's not right.
That's not right. That's not right.
Okay, I'm not going to lie to you, ma'am, and make up something. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not involved with the website at all, and I would have to go back to our friend that does the website and see where those numbers came from. I apologize.
Oh, that's all right. I alerted you to something.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
The other question I had was regarding justifying the 2 EMS positions. We requested some overtime information, and you gave that to us. And the question I had on the overtime is the overtime figure you gave us, which was $90,435. Is that number beyond your normal overtime hours? Because I don't have anything that shows me what it was in 2020 or 2019. I guess my question is the trend for your overtime going up too?
Yes, ma'am. Because of our lack of manpower and folks that were working for us at one time and have not been able to, whether they've been quarantined, they've been held over at their full-time job, they're just not available, they're going away. We have, in order to keep our minimum staffing, which currently is 2 paramedics 24 hours a day and 1 other person 24 hours a day, maybe a paramedic, maybe an EMT, to have those 3 people all the time has cost us a significant amount of money in overtime and extra part-time staff time. And then you add the 4th person during the day because the manpower is low. So you have those numbers that are all calculated in there. So what I did for this past year, since Steve and John asked me for these numbers, I got a report from our payroll company, which is John Stern and ADP. And I looked at everybody's actual normal annual salary, which for 39 weeks of the year, all the shift-based employees get 6 hours of overtime per week. And then 1 week is their short week, we refer to it, where they only work 24 hours. So I calculated that all out, and then calculated how much each one of them got paid over and above their estimated total annual salary. And that's where that $90,000 number came from. In addition to that, the part-time number, I believe I gave you 123,000, something like that. That was for part-time staff to fill in. Somebody had an injury, somebody was on COVID quarantine, somebody had a baby, that's our part-time staff, which has increased significantly over the last few years. It was just 3 years ago, it was only $47,000. But we've had to have a lot more people step in. We had one fella out with a shoulder injury. We've almost everybody that works here at some time or another has been quarantined. So it's really been a struggle to keep the minimum staffing.
Okay, just, because you just touched on it right there. You gave me some trend numbers, and, every year the board changes, and, you met Josette and I, we're brand new.
Yes, ma'am. I understand. Me too.
The more information that you give us that allows us to help you, the better. And, it's a struggle when I don't see the trend numbers, and I don't. So, in the future, having the right call statistics, as an example, and a little chart that maybe shows us, how many volunteers you lose every year, because that's a trend. That would really help us in our decision making. So, just note that for the future.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess it's very safe to say then that you expect with these two EMTs and their approximate $41,000 salary, that will lower what you are paying now for part-time employees, and it will significantly lower what you're paying for overtime?
Yes, ma'am. That's the goal. Yes, ma'am. And it will make sure, help make sure, not fully make sure, help make sure we have minimum staffing of 2 full ambulance crews, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Amos.
Okay, I'm going to move on to 3180 in the revenue column, the state Amos funding of 33,271. What that is actually used for is equipment. This year, it's going to be used to purchase some old thermal imaging cameras and replace a few four gas meters for the fire trucks. Each thermal imaging camera is anywhere between $5,000 and $8,000, depending on which model that we decide to go with. What that thermal imaging camera does is it allows us to see heat after the fire. It allows us to see if there's any heat still in there. It will also pick up bodies if we need to go into a burning house to find that somebody is trapped. We can see them. So that's what the thermal imaging camera actually does.
Okay, we received a question the last time we met, and it was on the interest, and there was interest in how did we get to the 6,800 interest. The interest is from our Bank of Ocean City savings, our Bank of Ocean City apparatus reserve account, our Taylor Bank money market, our Taylor Bank Amos, as well as our Taylor Bank operating funds. As we mentioned last time, we have a number of different accounts for different purposes. So the interest is what I just explained for the various, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different accounts. Okay. If we go down to the gray area, this is just a summation of everything we've talked about. The operating expenses plus the compensation and the apparatus replacement and the capital purchases minus revenue.
So I'll address the capital purchases on that 45,000, just so everybody knows the breakdown on that. What we have to do this year is we have to replace 10 of our SCBA bottles at a total of $2,000 each, and a total of 5 SCBA air packs at a total of $4,000 each, which comes out to about $40,000. And that leaves us $5,000 for masks and accessories for these SCBA, whether it's an O-fitting, an O-ring, or something like that. So that's where the capital 45 is actually going to be spent in this budget year.
That summarizes our presentation. Is there anybody that has any further questions?
That's fine.
Oh, you do have it. I still leave it there.
Yeah.
But I got that. Man.
John, I don't hear any further questions.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Any questions? I think everybody's on mute. They can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
They're asking, you good?
Yes, we're good.
All righty. Dave, Steve, Harvey, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Good job.
Thank you. Okay.
Those SBA bottles, they have expiration. Is that what it is?
Air bottles, yeah.
I'm asking, I'm gonna ask a question.
Yeah. They talked about that last week.
Yeah, at the budget and finance meeting, they said a lot of those things have expirations.
Various things.
Yeah, state standard or something. Have to.
Are you done? Well, we have review and action items. With John. So, John.
Colette, yes, I was just saying goodbye to the team.
Bye, guys.
Okay, so do you have an action items list?
Yeah, so you're right. We're up to that section. Hold on, let me catch up to you. So, what does it say in there? Okay, so this is where we summarize, or the board summarizes, or what we heard from today or over this time period. Obviously, you're going to get back to us on some of the items. I think you pretty much the board voted. Is there anything specific they need to get back to us today?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Obviously, the one-time assessment, but as far as what I have, Colette, for next steps is that, the team will make any changes that comes out of this from the board. I need to set a date. I know, Colette, you sent me an email or a text over the weekend. I need to set a date for a town hall to review the budget. I'd like to do it, after your board meeting this Saturday. And then go from there. And then obviously the board will vet this with the community, we'll post it. And then the board, I would hope, obviously, I think it's somewhere, usually it's always approved at the end of February. I think it does go in, I think it's 45 days before the beginning of the next fiscal year, it has to be approved. I would just advise the board from experience and everything, I would hope that we can do it at the last February board meeting, but that's just my take on it. So next step, we'll make any changes. If you can send it to me, to Steve and myself, or Linda, actually, send it to Linda, copy us, and then we'll do that. And then I'll set the date. I'll start, Linda will work with me to set a date with Josh for the town hall. I will be there presenting. Steve was in the audience last time. Linda will be there. And then usually somebody from the board and then other board members in the audience. That's all I have.
Hey, John, on the 450, that would just be approval as part of the budget process. That's not really a transfer to one of the other accounts. That would just be an approval, and you're looking for that to reduce the assessment, right?
Correct. I'm looking to have that as a standard line item each year. Again, that's up to the board, and it would be plus or minus depending deficit or surplus. Correct.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else for John? Okay.
Okay, I just, thank you to the board. I know BNF is still in there. I saw some of the attendees. Thank you to the team. I think the team showed you today why we have the efficiencies that we have. It's a flexible, cross-trained team that are fully engaged. Thank you very much. Good job, board.
Thanks.
Thanks, John.
All right, thanks.
And can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.